I would like to welcome you all to the House of Reawakening Minds tonight, and our illustrious master teacher, Grand Sheikh, Taj Tarik Bey. Let's receive him.
Today, particularly the baby, because it's easier for babies. Well, she's baby to us anyway.
She's like, baby.
And,
Who you calling
and
baby?
what we're going to deal with tonight is a third grade Etymon degree and identity crisis. First, I'm going to...
Won't you get the mic?
Yes. First, I'll eat that cake.
My cake.
Yeah. So we're going to deal with a third grade Etymon degree and identity crisis. Particularly, the Etymon degree is important because specifically and by design, the John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates Foundation, which controls all the school systems under the United States Service Corporation that's occupying North America. Their philosophy from the beginning was to dumb our children down. And one of the keys to it, because you know the children are intelligent, they're very intelligent, but what they do, they handicap them. And they handicap them by denying them an Etymon degree, which they should get in third grade. Now, when studies are made, literary studies are made, and scholarly and grammatical studies are made for the peoples at North America, the Asiatics or the Aboriginal people who are branded, understand those are brands, the Negro, Black, and Colored are brands. They're descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Moabites, the true Americans, Almanacans, i.e. they're Moors. And we're going to talk about some of the things, traps that the Romans have set up to handicap our children. And so we're going to ask you to help us. And just as a fun exercise, we just stopped at the second-hand store the other day, the Reese store. And I got these Britannicas, and so I brought them here. And this is because it's basic, if you get a decent dictionary, that you can teach a child the fundamentals of reading. And we trust that you'll share this with your children, share this with your family members, etc., because most of the adults can't read either, because they have been denied an Etymon degree. Doesn't mean they can't pronounce words, but they don't understand that the mother of a word remains the mother forever. Whatever word is born, that is denotation or it's etymon. And it's etymon in language. Etymon in language is what an egg to life is, what a seed to life is. So look at it that way, all right? Very intentional, get some more markers. I grabbed some. Now, Etymon relates to the true origin and meaning of a word. Now keep that in mind. It's very important to keep that in mind and not forget that, so that you don't miss the nature of the lesson. No matter what direction we go in, don't forget that.
Move the podium out of the way from the board.
It's in front of the board.
Yeah.
All right. Now, when you're teaching them or you're giving them their basics when you're giving them their basics in grammatication, always remember to make sure they're aware of this. Denotation. Versus connotation. And one of the rules as to why our children have been handicapped is because the priesthood who are operating the mind control systems or the solid systems, which we also call education and the systems where they teach dogmatism, they consciously promote connotative presentments as meanings, are we clear? And they target certain communities with connotative linguistics. Connotative linguistics is designed to create fad associations with words, but have nothing in reality to do with the truth of the word. And one of the motives and the reason as to why they instituted that practice was on long term that the people could not read contracts. Or they would not be able to read debt pledges, which are called mortgages. They would not be able to read papers relative to inheritances with competence. And whenever it came to anything of any value, they would always be handicapped and they would be forced to turn to the Barristers Association, who would set up what are called a barratry argument. And 90% of the time you'd lose. Are we clear? And it's not a thing where they don't like you or something like that. This is actually coming from unum sanctum policy from the Spanish Inquisition. All right, now the Spanish Inquisition, particularly you're dealing with Boniface III, Philip, and a few others. Those are major figures with the Spanish Inquisition. And the Spanish Inquisition is the foundation of the entire world's modern politics. Are we clear? So not being aware of that puts you also at a disadvantage because your concepts will be wrong on how you look at things. Are we clear? To cover up the operations of the Spanish Inquisition, they have promoted connotative words like racism and prejudice. They're connotative words. And they also create connotative phrases. That's to cover up what's really happening. Are we clear? What's really going on is the Spanish Inquisition. Spanish Inquisition and particularly unum sanctum. That is a church bull. Understand this, that all politicians know this, all high priests know this. Doesn't matter what so-called religion they claim to the public. They're all aware of this, and almost all of them, except for a handful, and it's usually maybe someone who's just becomes conscious in the community and starts trying to do something with the community, open up a little storefront church or something like that, maybe, but they haven't gone through theological college, they don't have an LLD, and they don't get yet into the system till later. A handful of them may not be members. May not. Not likely that they're not, though. Are we clear? Just sweep it. Just sweep it. Sweep it every once in a while when that goes off. What is promoted, particularly in North America, is a 501c3 tax exempt, so-called religious status, is really a skull and bones agreement. The skull and bones And it was set up by Lyndon Baines Johnson after they assassinated John F. Kennedy for trying to counter the Kabbalist activities with the coup d'etat that took place in 1861, which is another subject matter. We've talked about that. And to reintroduce the gold standard, which had been abrogated in order for them to institutionalize forced servitude at North America and put the descendants of the world's largest estate in perpetual servitude called slavery. Those heirs are called blacks, Negroes, colored, West Indians. They're actually Moors. And this is why it was necessary for them to use the brand system to remove the heirs off the platform so they would never be competent and never be out of wardship status and then be descendable. And so they had to disguise the overthrow of the Republic because they could not maintain forced servitude under the Republic. And so in 1861, when the Congress for the United States Republic adjourned sine die, it was really a coup d'etat with the intended purpose of institutionalizing slavery. This is why when the children are looking at the American Constitution in current times, they will never see the nobility clause in that Constitution with its 20 sections. That's called Original Article of Amendment 13 with its 20 sections. So they call it 1320. That's the word they use for it. It's a nobility clause. And this is where no barristers could hold an office in the United States under constitutional law. Are we clear? All right, now, the unum sanctum bulla, there's other bullas, and I'll name them. I'm not going to put them on the board, but I'll name them. It's unum sanctum dum diversus Romanus Pontifex inter caetera divina and the Sister V Act of 1666. And added to that, and is usually used to cover all of them, is what is used today most of the time when people that are designated as black, which means property, if they have any inheritance, the corporate state will always institute what is called the doctrine of discovery and tax them out the property because they're not allowed to own anything. Meaning that you never get a chance to build up, like say for instance, if you're her mother, and you're her mother, and you're her mother, and you build up an estate, say for instance you have 50 acres of land in New Jersey or North Carolina, it will never get to her. They'll make sure it never gets to her under the Christian Black Codes of 1724. Now, and this is the key, and that's where the identity crisis comes in. To remove the pedigree attribute in law makes the heirs non-descendable and automatically state wards. Are we clear? Automatically state wards. The condition is called wardship tenures. You can look it up in your law books later. I'm not going to put that on the board. Wardship tenures. Now, the key is, and me and Dr. Nailah was talking about this actually earlier with a brother that came through. Most of our people are not aware of what a allodial title is, never heard of it, not aware of aboriginal title. So all of the heirs of the land, the true Americans, that's the copper complexion people. They're the Americans. Distinguished from Europeans who are occupying America and claiming to be Americans but are not. Are we clear? That must be very clear to you, because if you don't get that, you don't get the lesson. And the issue is to start allowing or start making a path whereas the heirs to the estate, the children, can start receiving their inheritances. Because actually the Europeans are trying to kill everybody off, kill off the heirs. They're using biological warfare, chemtrails, fluoride in the toothpaste, They're sterilizing young women when they go to hospitals for minor stuff or cold or something like that, and they're secretly sterilizing them, or they give them cancer cells, because they're trying to kill them off. That's the real truth. So, let's get over it. It's what's happening. And because many of the few past generations, through both denial, a lack of information, misconceptions, etc., are basically kind of thrown away from a real political perspective. Meaning that that's not being harsh. We're talking about how they're really approaching that the people are expendable. Now, if we can get through to some of the adults to love their children enough to really start telling them the truth, but actually learning what truth is and learning how to read, a lot can be helped. A lot can be helped. Because as they're growing up, it's like baby girls growing up, she really kind of doesn't have an idea of the diabolical minds of people that are operating in government that she may think is government officials, having no idea that they're actually dark priests. And most of the parents aren't aware of it either. So we're dealing with that reality. I'm realistic and I'm pragmatic. And I know that we can't undo necessarily with a few lessons what Rome has had a couple hundred years to do. However, if we can get through to the people certain fundamental maxim truths that are indisputable, that we can demonstrate to them, that they can show for themselves, that they can start getting out of the follower mentality and start guiding by their own divine mind, and respecting knowledge again, that they would liberate themselves. Because once you start opening up certain doors of knowledge, other things start opening up because nature herself comes to your aid. Do you understand? Because truth always is and doesn't pass away. The deal of it is that the priesthood has covered the truth up. That's what's happening. And if we can peel off some of the gauze, some of the fictional gauze, to get people to really start having enough courage to start looking at things more honestly. They may be uncomfortable, but looking at things more honestly. They will begin to liberate themselves. At that time, nature herself comes to your aid. You can call her God, Allah, Yahweh, etc., but she will come to your rescue. And truth or the divine is always there. It's that we have fallen away from the divine under dogma systems. And part of our denial is what has injured us. And by us passing it down a few generations, what we have now is broken families, children are dying younger and younger, we've got all kinds of cancers, people walking with canes at 39 years old, all kinds of diseases that never existed amongst us. And it's mainly because we've fallen away from divine law. And so I'm not going to try to approach the divine principle with no spooky guilt trip type attitude, if you get the point. Because the sun shines on the good as well as the evil, and let us not get twisted about that. You understand? Divine is neutral. How we use it is our responsibility. Now, the Spanish Inquisition is used by Rome as a cover-up, a code system for the Inquisition against the Moors. Don't ever forget that. Spanish is a cover word for Moorish. If you want to know a lot of your real history, look at the Spanish Inquisition on the planet, not just in one area. If you want to know your history, all right? Scholars know this, Masons know this, Knights Templars know this, Skull and Bones know this, Daughters of the American Revolution know this, Daughters of ISIS know this, Knights of Malta know this. The only people that don't know this are the heirs to the world's largest estate, who generally think that human beings are crayons. And so we have a problem of trying to dig them out of a deep hole of ignorance without offending them, because they have a tendency to let their pride get in front of reality. Because they can't accept that they've been played. They can't accept that they're not as really spiritual as they claimed to be. The proof is in the pudding in our communities, and the breaking up of our families. And the IRS, which is really the Inquisition revenue services, been stealing all of our finances, our property, and everything that we work for. And they're not government. They are really a collection arm for the Popes of Rome under unum sanctum. And the problem that we have, a lot of adults with a claimed education don't even know that either. So what chance do our babies have? They're going to grow right into it. And we usually have no education prepared for them to defend them from what is already in place to crush their lives, literally. Now, so if we can just get across the third grade Etymon degree, that would help out greatly. All right? One of the things that we had planned to do, but we've been busy, and I do apologize, but really no excuse. I bought some posters because we were going to make some baskets, and if we have some children in here, give them a few words and have them put them in the baskets, But we'll try a little bit of something else. I think I'll just do the 8 parts of speech and then put them up. And then, because we have a little baby girl here, we can use her to help us out. Now, for the adults, and use this as a starting measure, right? Don't say anything, just raise your hands, raise both hands with numbers, just like a little child would, from 1 to 10. Like put your hands up like this. Don't make a statement, just put your hands up. And then I want you to look around the room. How many parts of speech? How many parts are there in speech? Put your hands up. I don't care what the numbers are. Put them up. Put them up. I saw you. All right. Now, point. And do this with children too, Now, do this test and recognize this test. Now, we're adults. Or we're grown, like children like to say, I used to say when we were grown-ups. Anyway, the fact that everyone hesitated, most of the people in the room hesitated before they put their hands up. What does that indicate? You either didn't know or you weren't sure, both of which is equally incompetent. Are we clear? So if the parent doesn't know, what chance does the child have? None. And I can almost guarantee you, if you test most children, they will fail too. But the parents never suspect that the teachers were deliberately instructed to hold back an Etymon degree for children that are branded Negroes, Blacks, and Colors. They used to separate them in the schools to make sure they didn't get it, and after some pressures with the fake civil rights movements marching around and praying all the time, to keep, kind of peace, they kind of integrated the schools, but what they did, then they chopped the curriculum. And then sacrificed some of their own to maintain the unum sanctum policy, called collateral damage. Are we clear? However, what they also did is that they set up secondary subdivisional agencies, whereas the European children faking as Americans would be protected. under what they call loosely white supremacy clauses, which is a misnomer. It's really Inquisition hegemony. That's what people been calling white supremacy is really Inquisition, Roman Inquisition hegemony. H-E-G-E-L, write it down please so everybody, also for the people that are listening so they can see it too. I'm gonna put that marker right there in here. Roman Inquisition hegemony. Now keep in mind, all scholars know this, but persons who you would call made men, or maybe in one of the Masonic orders, even though they wear a Moorish fez, they pretend they don't know it's a Moorish fez. And most of them get comfortable jobs under the corporate state to help maintain the ignorance of their own people. And they take blood death oaths to Rome. And they get a lot of the information, usually in allegorical stories and codified. And some of them don't know until they become members that they're actually getting the real history. And then they can't talk. Are we clear? But understand, most of the knowledge that's held in the secret societies is really about you. And this is why they always put some kind of negative on it. It's the devil, it's Baphomet, they spin cats around in there on TVs and stuff. They stand on the dark side of the moon farting and stuff like that. And, and so people, oh, well, I really don't want to look at that stuff, And so what happens is they muddy the water and you never examine it, and yet they use that science and that knowledge to run the planet. Are we clear? But for the public, they put up negative images so that to keep you disinterested. Are we clear? And the real deal is about you, and particularly about the Moabite woman, who they'll call in code systems black woman, which means slave woman. All right. Whenever they're using the term black, it means serf or someone in peonage position. It is not an honorable position. It's a degradatory. It's depreciatory. It is pejorative. Distinguished from a civilized person. Like, say, for instance, if you're talking to a civilized person or person in honor, you would deal with their pedigree or their bloodline. For instance, like if I was dealing with Manchurians or Chinese in honor, I would call them Manchurian or Chinese. If I was dealing with them to degrade them or to steal from them, I'd call them yellow people. Are we clear? Civilized people recognize that that's depreciatory. Uncivilized people don't know that that's depreciatory. People who can't read actually think that means some kind of an identity. And then they call themselves green people, and like I got a light-skinned black girlfriend, and I'm a dark-skinned black orange person, and it doesn't matter what color you are. And that's when you can, as soon as a person talks like that, you know that they're miseducated. And it's not that they mean any harm, they don't know better. Because they've been denied an Etymon degree from 3rd grade. So they think that means African identity. And they'll argue with you too, not knowing that they've sealed their legal status to the negative. And so with an Etymon degree, we can wake up the average person to that reality without them being offended, because a lot of people have learned to defend the brand system, because they think it's real. As an example, myself, like say yourself, myself, some of the elders here, remember 4 generations ago, if you called one of these Asiatics black, you had a fight. Today, the children think it's a divine African identity. They really do. And that's because the parents have allowed the brand system to take root as a reality. Now they're living dead culture. And the reflection is in the community. You know, all you gotta do is walk in the street, stand for 5 minutes, and you can see broken spirits. You know what I mean? Now, we don't want to always admit that, but if we're gonna fix things, we have to acknowledge what is happening and not be arrogant and self-righteous and pretend that we're spiritual and special and that Allah made us, didn't make anybody else. We know Jesus, we got a personal phone number and all that stuff. Meanwhile, our families are falling apart. Children are dying younger and younger. We got all kinds of sicknesses and diseases, etc. And families are just out and out broken. You know, and the fastest prison population today is the Asiatic woman under the black brand, of course, North America. You know what I mean? And most of them trying to survive with children because the males are either broke, they're either homos, broke, drugged out, or don't know how to treat women because they've never been raised properly, can't read, can't compete. Got big egos though. You know, we wear cool sneaks. You know, but we got to get over that and get real. And we got to start solving some problems. And in truth, you know, you can't just use guilt trips and make things right. You can't say, well, we're somebody and then you be somebody. That doesn't really work. You know, it's like you don't stand on a wall that's all dirty and stuff, say, we need to paint that wall, but you never paint it. We love paint, and you never paint the wall. It's like people, we have destroyed people, and everybody's sitting around talking about we're somebody, knowing that we're not really. We ain't doing that out. Not really. You know, we need to get over ourselves and start doing some things that work, that actually work. All right? So, keep this in mind. Denotation in grammar and grammatication is related to the etymon. Are we clear? An etymon relates to the denotation. Connotation may signify, may associate, and may not mean anything at all relative to the truth. Are we clear? To keep it very simple, like Dr. Nailah was talking a little earlier, I mean, the common one, the most common one, will say nice. Oh, you're nice. And they just called you stupid. You know what I mean? And that's a very good demonstration of etymon versus connotation. So the connotation, you know, somebody said you're nice, oh, thank you very much. You know, and they just called you stupid. You know. Now, that's safe in a book. It don't count. In a contract, or in a historical document that you're bringing to educate your children from Bible, Quran, or Oski, you can take someone and literally mess their minds up. Same books that are supposed to help them develop ethereally or spiritually can actually do the opposite and become absolutely destructive. Just on the fact that the people can't read. Are we clear? As an example, in transliteration and in scholarship, like someone who has an LLD, someone who's an ecclesiastical scholar, knows that there's no J in Aramaic, knows there's no J in Arabic, no J in Hebrew, and will lie and say they got a personal relationship with Jesus 2,000 years ago. And there's nothing wrong with the word Jesus. Jesus means justice, if you get the point. But if you present it and don't tell the truth of the history, then you just lied and you've created a whole paradigm of falsehood that ends up getting passed from generation to generation, and guess what it does? It actually destroys. It appears to be good, and actually does the opposite. It is no, what's the baby girl's name? Huh? Shania? Oh, it's like my niece. You know, it's just like, if we're going to write a book about her and she grows up and she does some productive thing for society, and the mother named her Shania, and we start talking, writing and saying that she's Betty Grable. And you know, years ago, Betty Grable came and she fixed a lot of stuff. She was a great decorator. And she designed things and everything. And people start believing it's just what they did to Yeshua when the priesthood renamed him Jesus in order to write his history out and alter the history and try to make him be someone that he actually was not. That's fact. What is called the Nicene Council of 325 AD is where the priesthood altered the books and made up the name Jesus from the Roman god Zeus and tacked it onto Yeshua and changed the history. And yet, how many people these days you hear talking about Jesus with confidence? Not that they mean any harm. But guess what? They can't read. That's how much damage the Roman priests have done to the planet. Are we clear? So we have one of the world's most powerful and influential personalities that was built on a fiction. And not that good men did not exist. Are we clear? And yet, world is guided by it. Are we clear? And yet the persons who perpetrated in secret got another truth for themselves, got an oath, death oath to Rome not to reveal the secrets, and taking the widow's pennies in the name of Jesus, knowingly. And then the people, the community, they can't solve any problems because they're not really spiritually connected to who they think they're connected to. They're actually connected to the popes of Rome, thinking that they're connected to Jesus, to the divine order of God in heaven. And they're actually serving the popes of Rome. And that's a fact. That's what the Nicene Council was for. But a scholar who could read can go into the books and do the transliterations and then pull out the lies. And take the same book and do a lot of good things with it. Because the book is allegorical and Kabbalistic. But if you didn't know that, you'd grow spooky and under somebody else's mind control, thinking that you're serving God and all this stuff. And Rev got a $3,000 suit, the popes of Rome get the rest of the change. And community gets poorer and poorer, and they ain't figured it out yet. And all the buildings they have are mortgaged up to the hill. Anyway, we're going to deal with Etymon Islam. We're going to deal with Etymon degree. As we were earlier, we're going to give you an opportunity to raise your hand, your fingers, like this. All right. How many parts of speech? Fingers only. Fingers only. Come on, come out your coat. Don't try to act like you're busy. All right, put your hands up. How many fingers? How many parts of speech? Let me see your fingers. All right, we're cool. Now, first row, name the parts of speech. One, and then we're going down. Give him the other mic.
Islam, verb.
All right, pass the mic.
Adjective.
All right.
Noun. Pronoun.
No. Mike.
Go ahead. What say?
Adverb.
Go ahead.
Conjunction.
Go ahead.
Interjection.
Huh?
Interjection.
Yeah.
Past tense. Past tense.
Huh?
Past tense.
Sit.
Past tense.
And what?
No past tense. Gone.
No, part. We're talking parts.
A speech.
Parts of speech. All right, they named verb, adjective, noun, pronoun, adverb, conjunction, interjection, head, fade.
Preposition.
There you go. There you go.
A participle.
Huh?
A participle.
Yeah. That's conditional, isn't it?
It is.
Yes. All right.
In the article.
Now, in general, what you do, you take all of the parts of speech and then you put them in like on a little bucket or something like that. And then you give the children a list of words. And then you would tell them to put the word in the bucket where it properly goes. Now, you also know in grammatication, some words may be classified in more than one part.
Yeah.
And so it would be in context. However, as a general rule, you would have the first order of its matrix or mother part of speech. All right? So we're going to do it with baby girl. Sanai. Can you come up, baby? With your technical skills and abilities and show these adults what's happening? All right, Mama. Now you know. Now you tell them who you are.
Should
All right. Now this is a Britannica World Language Dictionary. Come around here so they can see you, Mama. Come on. Now I want you to look up the word black. I'll get a marker back here and give it to you. And do this with the children too. And you give them a list of words so they can get used to that. Swipe this every once in a while when it lunges out, please. All right. Now, so I'm going to use a highlighter, and this way, we can run right to it when we do this again. All right? And then when you're showing others this, you can do that too, right? All right, as a practice. Now, Mama, what part of speech is black?
Having little or no power to reflect light.
Now say it again. No. What part of speech? Now I want you to pay attention to this, Mama. Now, here we go. Look, Mama. Adjective. Get in the mic.
Adjective.
Now see? All right, it's a baby girl, right? Now, black's an adjective. What else do you see, Mama?
A noun.
All right, here you go. Look at this, Mama. See that? All right. Now, you see, when you see the large letters like this, see the large letters in there? That would be called the etymology. All right? And so, that is what? O-E, what is that? Get in your microphone. The etymology would be the etymon. That means Old English. All right? And the word black would come from M-E, Middle English, would derive from Old English. So now what do we do, Mama? This is what we do, look. always pay attention to this. Always pay attention to the part of speech. See that part of speech? It comes right after the word, doesn't it? So it's not hidden, is it? So if it's an adjective, can it be a noun? Oh, so if it's not a noun, no, noun, what is a noun? Get in the mic.
Person, place, or thing.
So if it's an adjective, can it be a person?
No.
So if somebody calls you black, and that's an adjective, that's a modifier, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that means that's pejorative. They just slandered you unless you didn't know how to read. You see? All right, now, so let's look at that. So you see, black's an adjective, right?
Yes.
Now it says having little or no power to reflect light, the color of jet, opposite of white, having a very dark skin. You would immediately know that that is what? Connotative, not denotative. That's how when they present meanings for social engineering, you can easily dismiss it. When you don't, it means you can't read. Now you're under somebody's mind control. You see how that works? See how that works? Now look, mama. Look right beneath here. This is a compound word. What is a compound word? What is a compound word? A compound word is when more than one word is put together to make another word. Right? Two or more words, right? Stand by, mama. All right. So that's a compound word. Right beneath this, this shows you the morphology of words or how they evolve in language. Are we clear? So what does this say, mama?
Black,
Read it slowly.
black,
Dot,
dot,
a, dot,
dot,
more. What part of speech?
Now.
All right, but it's a compound word. Now, what is this definition?
Black and more.
Go ahead, read that.
Black plus more. Man or woman. Negro.
And then
Black plus more.
black plus more. What do you notice about the word black? All even letters, isn't it?
Yes.
And then it has plus, doesn't it?
Yes.
Then it has capital M-O-O-R, doesn't it?
Yes.
So here's the proper spelling. And the adjective is deliberately spelled in all even letters, which means it's pejorative. Are we clear?
Pejorative.
Yes. That means depreciatory. Slander.
Come on, teach.
Are we clear? So now, in the dictionary, you see the more is capitalized, small case, and then the black is all even letters. And they separate the black from the more. Who's these people who think they're Negroes, blacks, and colored? Here they are. Say it, mama. They're Moors. It's in the dictionary. Are we clear? Now, most people, most adults, now she's hesitant because of her training. Do you recognize it, mama? See, so you have to fix that. And these are the rules. Are we clear? Yeah. Now, this is what happens, look. When you're looking up a word and you see the part of speech, you categorize that word, look, mama, in its proper part, right? It's an adjective, right?
Yes.
And it's very clear there, isn't it?
Yes.
So you know when someone calls you black, it's being pejorative. Unless you didn't know better, you see? So you know that your bloodline or your pedigree would be a name, would be a noun, right?
Yes.
And so right beneath it, they give it in a noun, but they put the adjective and they separate the adjective from it very clearly and show you the pedigree of the people who are called Negro, black, and colored, right in the dictionary. And who are they, mama?
Moors.
Of course. Is that hard, mama?
No.
Is it written in the dictionary, mama?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Is that hard, you all? Now, here we go. Now you see, when you see the large letters, see the OE, and you see the brackets, you'll see the brackets like this. And this is what she's looking at, you all. The brackets. And this is what she's looking at. Right? When you see the brackets mean that. All right? Now, and so the black comes from Middle English, which is derived from Old English, which puts it at 1100 to 1500. Are we clear? So now, baby knows if I'm writing a book and I'm claiming scholarship and I'm telling her about some ancient black gods of Egypt, she now knows that I've just lied, because now she can read. Because that word doesn't go in language past this date. Are we clear? Now, in your Oxford dictionaries, or in a better dictionary, you would go into the back, into the appendix, and then it would give you, who has an American heritage? Now, and what you want to have, is about, minimally about 13 dictionaries. All right? I'll give you a list of some for her, and the next time you come, I'll give you 2 for her to get you started. American Heritage Dictionary, which is one of the most important ones, right? And I'll give you some markings in it to get her started, and a little list of stuff, right, Mama? All right, and then you're going to tell us some stuff, right?
Yes.
All right, and then in the American Heritage Dictionary on English language, it has a sound chart in the back and a short language chart, okay? And this will help her. And then you go into the front and use that. Now, whenever you see the large letters and the brackets, this is called the etymology. And the etymology means denotation. And understand when they have entries, what you call presentments, they may call them definitions. They are not, if they don't harmonize with this. Now, in the same rule, when they're like presenting things to us, like we were talking earlier, like most of our people, I know because you're a baby girl. You ever heard of a allodial title?
No.
Come on.
Allodial title. Right? Now, allodial title. Allodial title, all property, like say mom's house, and mom has some jewelry, and she has some heirlooms from great-grandmother that she's saving for you, some that was passed down to her. That would be called allodial property. And the land from great-grandmother would be called allodial property until Woodrow Wilson in 1913 modified or altered the records in order to help institutionalize the unum sanctum policy, which is really the Roman Inquisition hegemony, which they're enforcing step by step, generationally. Are we clear?
Yes.
To make sure that you never get any wealth, to make sure that you never get what is called old money. Your great-great-grandmother may have had tons of land and houses and finances, and it would never get to you. You may know about it, you never get it. They would tax you out of it. They would lien you out of it. So part of what we're dealing with now is to avoid this from continuously happening. I know that among you all, because it's in my family too, that you can talk about large tracts of land that have been lost. As an example with my family, in Jersey, where used to be Garden State Racetrack, which is now Depot and all of that, where Parkside School is on Park Avenue in the Merchantville area, from Merchantville going through Cherry Hill, through Pennsauken, all the way up to the Garden State Racetrack, used to be a racetrack there. All of that land was my family's land. Over years, they stole it. And that happens to our people all the time. All right? Now they have, in 89, they sent their letters out to our families, you know, and of course we had, the family so large we had to meet at the Hilton Hotel. And what they were doing, they were passing out checks on the estate. I wouldn't take it, you know, but they were parceling out the last of our land that they've been stealing from our families. As the elders died, the children didn't know anything about that stuff. They just, you know what I mean? And I met a lot of people that were friends of mine that I didn't know were my family, you know, and even a couple of people I nationalized. But anyway, Mama, this is key. This is key. And I want you to think about this, all right? And it may not be on your mind right now, but what we want to do, and this is important to me anyway, so I take this passionately, so you forgive me for that. I want to make sure that you don't suffer some of the things that we suffered.
Okay.
All right? And it's going to be because you're going to have knowledge right there. Are we clear? I mean, for real, for real, for real. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
And you're going to protect her. All right? Never forget this rule. Never. You can do a refined etymological study. One of the best etymologists, and I'm not being biased, in the country is Abdullah Il-Talib Mosey Bey.
Yeah.
And you can get more refined. I'll make sure she gets a couple of his books too. So next time you come, I'll have stuff waiting for you. For Mama. And you're going to use them, right?
Yes.
All right. Give Shania a hand, y'all. With her. Now, keep in mind, when they do an assessment of our people, and the general assessment is that our people average a 4th grade reading skill from the adults to the children, a 4th grade reading level. And that's true. Do the research. And the reason why is because they don't have an Etymon degree. Not because they can't pronounce words. Not because they can't, you know, do a phonetic dissertation. But they do not have an Etymon degree. An Etymon is what a word is, not what you think it is, not what it said. Girl, you got the boots, girl. Boots and bottles. Go ahead, girl. And we're going to make sure later that that people are veiled with how to study. And with that prerequisite, we're going to do the Etymon degree so that the people have some reference point. Islam. And you know, we have the unfortunate situation that our people have trusted people who are in position of authority to educate their children when they're actually being trained. They've been trained to ignorance, etc. Now, I want you to keep in mind that whenever you give Mama, say, a list of words, start with 5, 6, you know, keep it comfortable, you know. And I used to do it mine. I used to take the egg crates and I cut 4 of them off, and I put markers on them. But you can use something different, and then test her that way, and then have her show her friends that she'll develop by that way too. But keep in mind, this was very important. This was very important. It was supremely, for control purposes, important for them to negate an Etymon degree to our children, which they should have gotten in the 3rd grade. Because if they were able to read what was exposed to them, they could almost go into any literature and almost tell whether the author was deliberately lying or not. And even in subject matters that they're not familiar with, because they could cross-reference in different dictionaries, go to the original meaning, put a timeline on it, and see the motive of the writer. And logically, they could also use that same basic skill to take contracts, like mortgages and stuff, that their parents had and were busting their butt working, and discovered that it's actually a shared property agreement. They don't own anything. And the mortgage means dead pledge. The contract is dead, and your body and your labor is the pledge, and leaned on in perpetuity. And so, someone who reads knows that's what mortgages mean. Someone who can't read just think they borrow $5 and paying it back. And so what has happened is, particularly since 1913, Woodrow Wilson converted all of our allodial titles and aboriginal titles into mortgages and deeds in 1913. Prior to 1913, that paradigm did not exist at Northwestern Mexico. All rights of stewardship was held in the allodial title. Are we clear? So we're not talking ancient world, we're talking 1913. Are we clear?
Clear.
So the incremental step of the birthright and the changing of the allodial titles to mortgages and deeds is part of the birthright theft. And is also part of what necessitated the Europeans promoting the pretext that they were the Americans, which they are not. And also why it was necessary for them to promote that we were blacks and Negroes so that we would not be descendable. And also why they put their family names on our people so that whatever they bought or sold with the mark or the number of that name became automatic state property under what is known as wardship tenures. Write that down, wardship. That's W-A-R-D-S-H-I-P, tenures. That's a military operations under unum sanctum. And I'll remind you again, when you know the conversion of your estates to the Europeans under the unum sanctum policy, you would also recognize a great part of the motive of the Prophet Noble Ali in 1913 with the command by himself to the Queen of England to stop putting them brands on us and stealing our estates and to enforce the Constitution. Specifically, the nobility clause that had been removed. And then you'll see correlations. And the interesting thing, I was talking to a brother actually yesterday, and the Europeans, they have this law firm that the CIA supports called Southern Christian, something like that, poverty law firm. Yeah. And they put out a couple of Negro trolls on me in New York talking about that the birthright, that nationality has nothing to do with the trust operations and with Noble Drali, etc., when the heart of the movement is the enforcement of the Constitution. And those of you who have read the Divine Warning by the Prophet for the Nation will see that. You know, and I don't spend a lot of time trying to counter the trolls that the CIA sends out there. You know, but they usually send persons looking like us to do that. But they're counting on the fact that many of the people don't read. And they're also counting on the fact that many of the people who are alleged to represent the prophet will not take this information to the hedges and the highways, and will do clubisms and then limit the literature that they give to the people so that the people can't critique them for misrepresenting the prophet. And then enforce caveat emptor and get them out their seats and carry out the law that should have been carried out generations ago, so that we wouldn't have to come to venues outside of the temple to give information that would otherwise be blocked, if you get the point. Now that's being blunt, and that's for the trolls. Yes,
Question is, what is the nobility clause and where was it removed from?
From the Constitution, and the best way to demonstrate is to show you. You can get it in congressional records, too. And about 25 years ago, we've been sharing it with people. Because as you already know, because you work with us, we always try to give people documentary reference, because we always have trolls out there who are trying to dismiss the information for the purpose of negating the people or slowing them down. They can't stop the movement, they slow it down. Let me see if I can find. And this is one of the reasons why I also did, the treaty book and the Constitution, because knowing a constitutional principle that treaty and the Constitution are one document and are to be looked at as one document. And persons who have been teaching these people enforcing the Constitution, particularly those who have been studying the illustrious Prophet Noble Ali, we've had treason amongst persons that were supposed to teach. And so, as a matter of fact, some of them even attack us for teaching constitutional principles. Yes. Yes, they do. So what I did a treaty book and the Constitution to give people a reference. And actually, this was briefed, because you can make books thick, but I try to keep things simple and to the point and give people reference, and then leave enough space for them to study so it becomes their own. So let's go to, let me see, original article amendment 13 in its 20 sections. Hold on, I think we're in this.
Nobility clause for.
Here we go. Now, and because I know that amongst our own that they send trolls out, so I even left the text as it is in the congressional records as pictured rather than retyped. This is the nobility clause.
Make it a little bigger.
Yes, the original Article of Amendment 13 with its 20 sections. And we passed this out to people for years to counter so-called leader guys who've been misrepresenting. Now, you notice that you'll see 20 sections that in the Constitution as they're teaching the children now in school, they'll have two sections. You'll have two sections in it. You'll not see the rest.
For the 13th Amendment.
Yes, 13th, original Article Amendment 13 with its 20 sections. All right? Now, I want you to also notice, Article 12.
No citizens.
Now, I want you all to read Article 12 with me, so you can see also why it was necessary for them to pay so-called black reverend leader guys to promote the 14th Amendment, which was the cover-up. And remember, Drew Ali said the 14th and 15th Amendment is not necessary for the salvation of my people and citizens.
Right.
Didn't it?
Yeah.
They cover up the 13th. Read number 12, y'all. Read it out loud so they can hear you.
The traffic.
Because he's going to go slow.
And descendants of Africans shall not be citizens.
So what happens when they have marching Negro leader guys going around getting our people to be 14th Amendment Negro citizens for the privilege of voting that don't damn count? They're stopped because you're the heirs of the land. Descendants of the Moors, you're at Morocco. You're under occupation by Europeans. With the enforcement of the Constitution, they're supposed to, what, live by the treaty, which they've abrogated to steal your birthright. Are we clear? Clear. And then they paid Negro marching troll leader guys to convince you that the 14th Amendment made you citizens when you could never be citizens because you're under occupation and they're foreigners on your land. That's why they won't show this in the school books. And all scholars know this. They stay away from this kind of stuff because they get a 501c3 kickback. Corporations be funding their Negro marching group organizations with some Reverend 32-degree Mason guy. Got a Moorish fez and pretending they don't know these people are Moors. Islam.
What? Just wanted to camera walk. Article 1,
Yes.
Section 9, subsection 8, it says, no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit, trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept of any present emolument, office, or title or of any kind, whatever, from any king, prince, or foreign state. So that's Article 1, Section 9, subsection 8.
And so what happens? 99% of all the persons who are claiming to be congressmen and senators are barristers. How did that take place? They overthrew the Republic form of government in 1861 in order to neutralize the Republic form of government and to hide the real parts of the Constitution and then pay people to make our people think that they would be U.S. citizens, which is a private corporation that Lincoln bankrupted, that's registered in France, 1754 by Benjamin Franklin, which is a corporate entity, is not a country. Are we clear? Clear. And any scholar knows that. Any politician knows that. Any Mason knows that. Any Grand Sheik knows that. Any Skull and Bones member knows that. Any Grand Dragon of the Kite Ku Klux Klan knows that. And the only ones that don't know it is the heirs to the estate who've been cheated by people claiming to be Grand Sheiks who betrayed the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Which is why they don't teach constitutional law and why they spend half their time instead of going after the European attacking Taji guy for telling the truth. Yeah. Go ahead, Doctor.
Islam. Section 12, the last part says, and the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens.
That's called the U.S. corporate entity.
Which we are not.
And can't never be.
Can't never be. But we are Moors, and we are Aboriginal to the land.
We're nationals of the Moorish nation.
Of the nation. So
in treaty.
Does that apply to
United States? See, we're in treaty with them. What they've done is traded places with you. And then dismissed you altogether. And then trying to exterminate you. See, this is where people need to understand what's happening. The impostorship is where the identity crisis comes in. They've been claiming to be Americans, they're not.
That's right.
They claim you to be black, which you're not. They're using the sovereignty and your name to do things in your name around the world against your interests and against other people too. Are we clear? Let me say this again. It is very important for everyone to be clear on what's happening here.
Okay.
And this is a synopsis, and this is for those of you who don't know, and most of you do know, but just for those who don't know, so that you can follow this stuff, so that you can critique what I'm telling you. Don't accept what I'm telling you. Analyze what I'm telling you, and I'm giving you reference points so you can see for yourself. Because there's people that look you in your face that claim to be sheiks and reverends and bishops and rabbis who've been lying to you and getting paid in the background, which is why they get angry at people like me for exposing this stuff to you. Talk about Taj, he tells them too much. They do. We all getting screwed, and I'm telling you too much. No, what I'm telling you exposes some of these people around you as traitors. That's what it does. That's why they're mad. Go ahead.
Is this document on the flash drive?
No, this is in the treaty book. You have this.
Treaty of Peace and...
Yes.
Okay.
This is the Treaty and Constitution book, the TAN book.
Okay.
Yeah. Right after I talk about naturalization.
Hold it up, hold it
And
up.
the
Treaty book?
yes.
Come here closer. I can't,
Yes.
some people are asking where they can find
And the
this.
prophet reminded you all so that you wouldn't get smoked. He said, look, the half has not been told. If I told you everything, you'd go back to sleep. Study. And when you would have studied well and would ask me what to study next, I would reply, study yourselves. But if you don't know yourself, you can't study yourselves. So what do you do when you study? This is what you study. When you study Constitution, the prophet said, help me to bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing our Constitution for the United States of America. That's a covenant. So what occurs as soon as you do the research? You find that every time Noble Drawley made a move, the Romans made a counter move. If you didn't study, you wouldn't recognize it. You just, start repeating things. Praise Allah for Prophet Noble Drawley. I didn't know who I was yesterday, now I do today. Thank you, I got a peanut butter sandwich. Oh, hallelujah. And that's what people be doing. And they really need to understand that this man is trying to restore your estate that you lost. And our people don't even know half of them don't even know what a state is or what a state law is. They don't even know about the Global Estate Trust that the Pope set up after defeating the Moors for administrating over conquered lands. And you have some grand sheiks and chicas out there saying, Todd, you telling them about trust. And he shouldn't be telling them about trust. It ain't got nothing to do with the movement. It got every damn thing to do with this movement. Are we clear? Because that's how they've been robbing you. Are we clear? And you know what? And this is what I discovered too over the years. And it has, on a personal level, one of the reasons I set up the round table in '82. Being involved in different organizations and recognizing when you really get into controversial truths, people who you think would be trying to help the people be the first ones trying to suppress that information. Meanwhile, in the background, they're getting a few coins at the expense of the people that they're supposed to be helping. And then the people believe in them because they got titles. Grand Poobah with 50 badges across here, and a sash across here, and they're all important. Raping the people. And the people never suspect them. Well, I ain't too keen with people like that. And I don't care if they don't like me. Because the people approve me, not them. I work for the people, not them criminals. Islam.
Islam is a question to ask, wants to ask why you're talking about the Pope's property estate law instead of Islamic property estate law.
Because they're controlling the estate. Logic. If they knew history, they'd know that. This is why we're teaching the history, because if they know this thing, they know what the tie is. Why is it that we're doing what we're doing? You're under occupation. One of the greatest problems that we have is our people denying that they're under occupation.
All right.
And pretending that they're spiritual. Families falling apart, IRS taking all of our stuff. They're packing the jails with our people. They're pumping mind controls, substances under the name of drugs, planting cancers in them.
And the food.
Lacing marijuana, that's why they're legalizing it now, with GMOs. These people are, all questions are all right. There's no wrong questions. But some questions our people, by this time, should have grown out of. We're under European hegemony occupation. They're controlling our state. They've traded places. They're claiming to be Americans. And our Americans are claiming to be black. Duh. Which makes them not descendable.
Come on.
And we need to fix that. Then we got black leader guys keep trying to pump that black thing. And so that's why we take the baby, Shania, to the dictionary. Baby showed you that these people ain't black. And she wasn't aware of it. Just show her how to read a dictionary.
That's it.
And how many trolls out there they have arguing and trying to tell our people that black's identity. A scholar knows that that's a co-intellectual operation. A person who can't read doesn't know that, though.
Right.
So I'm not debating with them. We're teaching the people to read so the people themselves will know to cast off them Judases. Because they're sacrificing your babies whether you know it or not. Now, synopsis again. Synopsis. Pope Boniface III. Put that on, write that down, because you're going to do some research, y'all, because y'all need to bring some solutions to these issues. And the only reason why they can continue to get away with this stuff is because our people continue to be ignorant of fundamental things, fundamental truths. You get this idea, if you really pay attention to our people, they get this idea that they're so spiritual. No, I'm serious, like, we got some special protection. No, we're full of doo-doo. We really, and people need to tell us to our face we need to stop faking and sacrificing our babies. Trying to tell them they're doing fine and they're saved, and all they see is broken families. Daddies in jails, and half the other ones homos, and the women who's being packed in the jails now, struggling, trying to take care of their babies. We're full of doo-doo, and we need to stop faking it. Stop sacrificing our babies with our arrogant, ain't saved selves. Now, in 1754, Benjamin Franklin set up the United States Service Corporation. That's Benjamin Franklin. Don't get it twisted. Now understand, Barack H. Obama put his neck on the line and exposed that the American Constitution comes from Muslim law, which it does, and which it did. The world's oldest running treaty, which he made mention of, of a later section. We talk about the Treaty of Tripoli, 1790, which is a part of the series of the treaties of peace and friendship, which is the world's oldest running treaty between the Moroccan Empire and Britain, i.e. under their colony operations called the United States. In union with the Moorish nation, as the Moorish nation was falling, that was to stop the hundreds of years wars between the Muslims and the Christians, who are really the Constantinians operating under the name Christian. And this is where you get the longest running treaty. That's what Barack H. Obama was talking about. Are we clear? Clear. Which is why he had pictures taken of him with Michelle with the true Al-Moroccan flag right here. And they cut out the trading banner, not for disrespect, but to make it clear what the message is. Are we clear? Clear. And for those of you who got a phone, take your phone out right now, just keep it down, silent, and speak into your phone, Barack H. Obama and Moorish flag. He's showing you the true American flag. Then they come back and they sign the rights of indigenous people. Now I'm going to give you a synopsis so you can know the politics, so you know what every Mason knows, all Knights Templars knows, all Illuminati knows. Our people be talking about these people all the time. You know, the Illuminati's doing spooky stuff of Nibiru with the 13th planet that comes in a 90-degree angle through the universe of the darkness. They don't even know what the hell they're talking about. They're just talking stuff that they hear. No, serious. Our people need to really get educated and stop being played. Islam says.
You said when they walk
Microphone.
the doors and Obama.
Just talk in your phone. Say Barack H. Obama and Moorish flag.
Thank you. Islam.
Good brother. Give a brother Mike. Oh, excuse me. Just that.
You said when Obama and Michelle came through the doors, I did see that picture, but she had one of the
Sure, because it's a message to the world.
Yes, and you said that's when they signed over the rights for the.
No, after they came back, they signed the rights of indigenous people for these people to declare their nationality.
Okay.
But the whole world has been addressing this, and your biggest problem, when I say I'm talking about our biggest problem, is people who've been misrepresenting Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who's on their papers supposed to be on these hedges and these highways and waking these people up.
Yeah, but it's people that have been declaring their nationality.
Of course they are. What have we been doing?
Right.
We've been giving freely information that other people have been selling to them as packages. Making it available to them. That's why. Let me tell you something. Justice is on the way. These traitors. And they've been getting away with it. No. That's fine. I wouldn't mind so much as they didn't talk trash. You know, they spend more time critiquing me than going after Rome.
Exactly.
They mad because when I show people stuff and people start doing research, it exposes them as COINTELPRO operatives. That's why they're mad. And they can't get these people's finances no more. They've been stealing these people's finances for buses that never appear, for buildings that never get erected. Roofs that continue to leak. I don't even, you know. Let's stop that, because I'm really getting, it's like, really, I'm going back to, that's why I got rid of my guns. Because I'm a Frankenstein on the other hand, too.
All right.
No, I'm serious.
You had one.
Oh, yeah. I was kicking so much ass, they kicked me out of prison, in jail, in the service. I was going to take some people out, and I'm an expert with weapons. Not a marksman, expert with weapons. And I got another side of me, this is therapy for me. It really is. Taji guy ain't as nice as people think Taji guy is. I mean, he'll pass. Barely. Yeah, I'm telling you, you have no idea the many nights I wake up with my stomach grinding for years, and I had to calm that Frankenstein down. So I converted to love.
Beautiful.
Like for real. Get up, Brother Mike.
He has it.
Peace, brother. My name is Andre L. Jihad Bey.
Islam, good brother.
Islam war. I want to reflect on something that leads up to that gives that authority right there. Let's talk about King James 6:1. After King James died, and then they placed him with an imaginary King James, something, another one. So
Yeah.
this gives them that authority from 1754 because King James wouldn't give the papacy the authority to do what they wanted to do at the time when they was trying to take authority from
And
them.
always is self-authority, yeah.
So it leads up to us to this day right here at 1754, whereas though now after he died mysteriously, now all of a sudden they get this authority to take over and incorporate it.
Yeah, stay in the mic, stay in the mic.
Incorporate it as far as the United States. is
And
concerned.
this now let's,
Germany's purpose.
yeah, now let's hang right on to
Very
that.
interesting.
This is
There you go.
what must be understood. This must be understood. And analyze this too, good brother.
What?
Analyze this too.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
All right. Now, fatwa, a barrister cannot hold office under the United States. Because the United States is based in, the republic is based in colonial law.
Right.
All right, and Muslim law. It was necessary for them, in order to continue the unum sanctum policy, to overthrow the republic, but veil it or cover it up.
Right.
And this is where it took place. As negotiations, you can check international law records. Go to archives in England. Check communications between the Moroccan Empire and Britain. Paris Treaty, all those treaties.
Right.
That leads up to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1786-87. Then the adoption of the Northwest Ordinance, 1788. And the first signing of the Constitution, 1788, solidified 1789.
Right.
And then the appointment of George Washington to take Benjamin Franklin's place, etc., who was a minister plenipotentiary under Sidi Muhammad, Emperor of Morocco, with the formation of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Now, this is the key. This is the key. Though we know that George was the ninth, John Hanson the Moor, they made the Great Seal for John Hanson. And he's the only president that used the seal. No president used the seal after John Hanson. The seal's on the note, but no one used that seal but John Hanson, who was the first president for the Republic Order, 1781.
Let me interject you for a minute. Let me speak about that because, see, we have a little discrepancy about that.
Yeah,
You know, we got to elaborate on John Hanson a little bit more than it is right now because there's more truths that's coming out about that, than it is actually being pronounced. So I like you to go a little bit more on that and not just leave us with just John Hanson.
Well, because what I'm really trying to do is show where the conversion takes
I feel
place.
you know, but
Now, 1781 is when the Republic form was adopted for the Constitution. And at that time, they only held the office average of 1 year.
1 year.
Of 1 year. Now, when George was appointed, one of the things that George did was convert the Bonnevilles and the estates into the states. This is where so much emphasis is put on George Washington. But the key is to understand what we're battling now, mostly, even though it goes back to Pope Boniface, we talk about incremental steps, is with what Wilson did to counter Noble Duality, with converting the allodial titles and the aboriginal titles to mortgages and liens in 1913. All having to be built on this platform that they set up in 1861. and then solidified in 1871, which is called the Act of Congress. All right, this is the sine die, which is really a coup d'etat.
May 10th.
Yeah, but this is what's important. This is what we need to get across to everyone. This is where the identity crisis comes in. This is where the causal point of the Moorish movement has a great root of action, where it calls you to action. The United States Service Corporation, which was set up in France by Benjamin Franklin, that corporation was to deal with most of the service contracts for the organic operations of government at the North Gate. This is why Shriners and Masons and your high degrees are called keepers of the North Gate. The North Gate is northwestern Mexico, North America, heartland of the Moroccan Empire, under occupation. Are we clear?
Clear.
When you start checking England's records and the correspondence between the Moroccan Empire and England, you will find the letters coming right on up to George Washington's communications. And you'll find that John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Madison were all Masons. They were deists. They were not Christians. They were deists. They had Korans. They tried to protect the Republic order. It was undermined. Are we clear? When in Lincoln's administration, this is when they did the sine die of 1861, May 10th. It was a coup d'etat. The plot and the plan was and is still operational right now, which is why we're here talking what we're talking. To convert the debt of this corporation that Lincoln bankrupted. He could not run on the organic platform, so they ran him on this platform so that he could control the enumerated powers of government. This has much to do why the Europeans killed him. And this we're not even talking about just the Dungy case that he did 5 years before he was president.
Teach right there.
Or the Opus Dei issue with Charles Chilliquay. We don't want to get off on that. We want to stay focused on the things that count to you now.
All right.
What is the sequence? What can you do? How can we save Shania's estate? That's what I'm interested in. So I'm giving you key points. You can do the refined research yourself. I'm giving you proof beyond doubt. The mission of the Prophet Noble Drali to restore your estate. Don't believe me. Look it up for yourself. And you're going to recognize that you got traitors amongst you that's calling themselves sheiks and sheikesses. Everybody keeps talking about the sellout, but they don't get into details. I'm getting into details.
All right.
You know, they can do what they want to do. But Taji's going to do what he knows to do. This United States corporation, Lincoln was run on this platform because he could not run on the platform of the Republic's order because of the nobility clause. Are we clear?
Clear.
This is why they would dress him in Moorish garb in the newspapers all the time. And that's why they called him Africanus the First. Are we clear?
Clear.
Because he was doing things to counter their theft operations. Are we clear?
Clear.
Hold on, let me and then you get with this. It's important for you to keep this in mind. The order. Societas Republica et Americanos. which is the Moorish Republic Society at North America, is renamed the United States Republic. Are we clear? The Republic, with this coup d'etat, the act of Congress here established the U.S. democracy platform. Excuse me. That's what this established, which is an imposter platform in order for the criminality of unum sanctum to continue under disguise of legitimate government, which is really colored. Drawley said, "You're not Negro, black, or colored." He give you codes. If you start researching, you'll find this stuff. This is a color of law platform. That's an imposter platform covering up the legitimate republic. Article 4, Section 4, look at that Constitution. Someone read it. Article 4 of the Constitution. Give her the mic. This is very important because you want to get these concepts, because I want to get back to subject, and this is the identity crisis, but you must understand the purpose, the function of it, not just the fact of it. You need to understand its political function, because you will not be inspired to do anything about it until you really comprehend why it's in place. Once you understand why it's in place, Taj, you guys, nobody else have to tell you anything. When Drawley said to these Moors, if you don't do anything else, declare your nationality, you'll understand what that statement really means. That statement is so far bigger than most people give it credit for. You have no idea. The problem that we have right now is because Rome is under pressure, they're accelerating the liquidation of the estates. And so people that have been passive with this information are going to find themselves in a condition that they really don't want to be in. Meaning that you don't have a lot of time to keep messing around with this information. That's what I'm telling you bluntly. So I'm trying my best to the limit of my limited capacity to tell you as much truth as I can to get you active, to kind of put a wrench in the gears, because the machinery is already in operation. And they do intend to exterminate you. And my suggestion, honestly, truthfully, from an ethereal position, is that nature has to come to your rescue. There has to be enough sincerity shown amongst you that nature rescues you, because you ain't got no other machinery that's going to save you from this Roman. Go ahead.
Article 4, Section 4?
Yes.
The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence.
Now, does that say democracy?
No.
Does R and D, are they interchangeable?
No.
You ask the average person that's been mind controlled under the Rockefeller Foundation, and they will tell you democracy, which sanctions the fraud that they're marching and complaining about, sacrificing their own babies to the demons. So the true Americans keep on sanctioning the BS, and they keep letting people who claim to love Prophet Noble do everything but enforce that Constitution and let them hold them seats instead of enforcing caveat emptor, and they're getting ready to pay a dear price for it. a very dear price. That platform is a platform of safeness. A platform for demons. The political platform that was necessitated for them to be operating on the planet and go uncovered or go covered up is the U.S. democracy platform that was set up in 1871. That's the physical, that is the political platform for the legal, not lawful, conversion of the Moorish estate that Noble Ali is fighting for. That he told you to help him in the missionary work to bring the people back into the constitutional fold of government. And these people keep acting like that's his issue and ain't yours. Well, it's your estate. And if you didn't know it, you need to know it now. Islam. It's your estate. This is why the Europeans started calling themselves Americans, because they are corporate stockholders in the United States Corporation Company in France that Lincoln bankrupted. When Lincoln discovered they were using him to undermine the Republic, he deliberately bankrupted that United States Service Corporation whose platform he was run on. Are we clear?
Yeah.
The plan was to take the heirs of the estate, the Moors, and enforce the brand system to remove them from claim, reversionary claim, or right of claim to the estate. That's why the European put his family names on them. Anything they buy or sell with the mark or the number of that name makes them state property. Period. They're not descendable. Any one of them using the Negro, black, or colored brands, their brands are not descendable.
Come on.
And are not protected under international law because no such people exist. And they're not part of any constitution or treaty. The treaty with the Moroccan Empire. It ain't with no black nation. Ain't with no Negroites. No, you got to understand, we're talking trust law. We're talking estate law. Our people need to understand this stuff is no joke. But what I recognize is that people who know this information have not emphasized it, and our people don't know how much trouble they're in. All of your other economic problems stem from this here. Your economic problems stem from this. Noble Ali said, children, you're just rich. That's what he's talking about. But the problem he has is getting these people active and not passive. Islam, good brother.
Here.
Islam. Get him like this.
Islam, MOORS-MUURS-MOORISCH, Taj. When you're talking about inheritance, when you talk about hereditament, corporal and incorporeal, you're talking about descendable.
Yes, all those things.
Yeah.
That means the corporal, that means the physical. And understand when you're talking land, people think that even when you're talking land, that you're talking the aggregate soil. You're talking about all rights of titles, liberties, and other things that don't appear to come under that title. You're talking intellectual properties. You're talking about preserved literature that the Jesuits have, that they've been having underground, that they robbed from Alexandria. Are we clear? The libraries that they robbed. They put the world behind over 500 years and got you enslaved with oil and a whole bunch of energy systems that are depreciatory and that are outmoded. Over thousands of years ago, they could pull electricity out the air. They could run cities on little balls of energy like this, little orbs. Run cities on it. People's concepts that electrical and the atomic use of energy is new is a fraud. It is ancient beyond ancient. The Sahara Desert out there, or like when you go, how many of you, anybody in the military, been in White Sands in New Mexico? White Sands in New Mexico, one of the reasons White Sands is white is because there's ancient atomic war. Crystallized the sand. These are facts that you don't know about your own history. The Great Lakes were made with atomic power. They're not natural.
That's right.
And they always have a mist over them.
That's right.
For fresh water for the Western Hemisphere. Our concepts about ourselves are just totally wrong. Most of what you've been told about yourself in history is just not true. A lot is coming out now because people are being forced to, not because, I'm speaking from my opinion. If it weren't for the middle-class Europeans being thrown under the bus, a lot of things that they're saying they wouldn't tell. Like Drew Ali said, he's going to make the European stuff true because they're catching it. They're catching it. But still, at the same time, they're still trying to steal the birthright. Are we clear? Now, so what's important, and this is key, I'm going to emphasize this. The United States Service Corporation that Lincoln bankrupted in 1860. He bankrupted this in 1860. 1861, the Congress adjourned sine die, which was a coup d'etat. 10-year span, they set up the political platform that was necessitated to undermine the republic. Are we clear?
Clear.
But to veil its operations as if it was legitimate. Are we clear?
Clear.
So they took on the name American, which they're not, and said they're Americans, called us blacks, which takes us out of the treaty and the Constitution, put their names on us, which makes them property, and wards of the state, which means you have the right of the state. No matter how old you are, you're listed as minority. All right? Are we clear? They converted all allodial titles to mortgages and deeds. Woodrow Wilson did that in 1913. Now you understand the motive. And why they met off Jekyll Island in Georgia. Then Drew Ali told the Queen of England, enforce the treaty and Constitution and stop the BS. And you understand why the movement was infiltrated. Are we clear?
Clear.
And why the so-called black leaders and sheiks and stuff here don't talk about the OAS, which is the Organization of American States. That's all the true Americans that came to Drew Ali's aid in Havana, Cuba. Are we clear?
Clear.
And what do? They try to hide all the papers or any information about that.
You say that one more
And you start talking about constitutional stuff, they'll start telling Drew Ali don't teach no civics, he only teaches religion.
Can you say that one more time? Organization of what?
OAS is the Organization of American States. See, America
North Central.
is from Greenland
Come on.
down to Chile,
That's right.
including the islands on the left and the right, in the Pacific and the Atlantis, which is called Americana. The Europeans, with the help of Negro leader guys, been telling the people that America's a country and that the United States Corporation is America and that the Europeans are Americans using sovereign power of America. You're the Americans.
Come on.
You've been stripped of your sovereign power and they've been going to and fro the earth, devouring nations in your name, and no one has been speaking up except the prophet. And he asked you to do the same for your Moorish movement. He said, protect your prophet and your Moorish movement. And you already know, and I ain't got to exaggerate it, it ain't been happening. There's been more people outside of this movement that's been helping the Moorish movement than a lot of people in the movement. They're full of doo-doo, and they need to be called to the carpet on it. Because it's the birthright of all the Americans. He said, come all ye Asiatics of North America and hear the truth about your nationality and birthright. He said club members. He said only ones in the temples. And on them, everyone that's a seeker of seekers, on their paperwork it says hedges and the highways. And they made little clubs that they made reverse churches out of. That's what they've been doing. And taking people's finances. And suppressing and attacking anybody that talks about constitutional law or civics. When that's the heart of the movement. Are we clear?
Clear.
Now, deal. This is the deal. So, this United States corporation has been perpetrated in the minds of the people as a country since 1861. And that's a fraud. The country is Morocco. Under occupation. Are we clear?
Clear.
Now, the deal. No Drali, like in chapter 47 of Circle 7 Quran, he's actually set up basically the order itself, the Moorish Divine National Movement, not just the temple. The Moorish Divine National Movement itself is a trust. He's dependent on you to uphold the integrity of that trust. Because it already exists before you were born. You don't have to create a new wheel. You need to be part and parcel of that which already is. Step up to the constitutional fold that already exists. Are we clear?
Clear.
You have people in a position of authority who've been blocking you or creating confusion or creating gray areas. I'm trying my best to remove the gray. Are we clear?
Clear.
Now, keep this in mind. So Lincoln bankrupted this United States. The plot of the Congress, which is no longer Congress after 61. Keep this in mind. There really are and have been since 1861 this. That's who they really are. And they do nothing to serve the people. They do everything to serve the corporation. That's why you're broke now. And the national debt is a fraud. The national debt is the alleged debt that they did in your name to restore this. And so they put the debt on the nationals. Which is why when you declare your nationality, they be saying things and trying to make it sound negative. Oh, they think they sovereign. They don't want to observe U.S. law. No, we enforce constitutional law, which comes from Muslim law. They will always misrepresent, but you must correct it. Are we clear?
Clear.
So the persons that are calling themselves congressmen are really and have been actually board of directors for Queen Elizabeth under the secret Treaty of Verona with the U.S. democracy platform. And every time you go interchange with them, you're actually dealing with private corporate heads who are stealing your estate. They are not government. And as an interim, swipe that computer, as an interim, for you to understand some of this, which is why we tell you about the Clearfield, now you understand why the Clearfield Trust Company won that case. Because they weren't allowing them to put the nigger codes on them. And I won't get into that, but that's what that's all about. That's what the Clearfield that's why it became a doctrine. That's why they call it Clearfield Doctrine. That's why it became a doctrine. It's predicated on this knowledge, you all. Are we clear? Go ahead, Dr. Nailah.
Islam, I've been, when I'm watching the camera, so I get to see all of the comments that are coming over from the viewers. There's about 76 people right now watching. And of course, you get you get trolls on both sides. We get them everywhere. But we also have some legitimate. Okay, I think Taj has to play with the little baby before she leaves. I got him on camera, so everybody can see what he's doing. Okay, what I was going to say is I see the comments, and some, they both go both ways, pro and con, a lot of support. But then there are also folks that are saying, oh, it's real redundant. We hear the same thing over and over again. I get a chance to talk to you, dialogue with you a lot, probably more than most, so I know where your head is and where your heart is in a lot of areas. I know for myself personally that you've been coming here since 2011. It took me probably until 2016 for the light bulb to come on. Up until that point, I was making a venue available to people that I thought other people that needed this.
Yes.
I didn't personally feel like, I didn't need a remedy. I wasn't, stopped, traveling or riding or driving or whatever. I know the difference now between driving and traveling, but I'm saying those things, nobody was coming to take my property. So I didn't see the connection with me, but I felt in my heart a reason to make this venue, and I still do, available. It pains me when I see some of the stuff that comes over the screen because, we're trying to come together. We have been divided by many factors. But when you see so-called Moors who are coming to, hopefully to get the knowledge, yet they're fighting and arguing about, the validity of the teacher or who's, representing MSTA versus whatever, it becomes painful. But my point is, people want solutions. Some people, not everybody, not everyone wants you to do all things, but some people want you to do everything for them. So they're saying you're giving out information, but no solutions. But we have to study.
The solution is
that's what this is my point.
Yes.
Waking up and being cognizant of what's going on, like I wasn't for the first 5 years, to me is like step one. Yeah. If more of us would wake the hell up, then we would not be fighting, and we wouldn't have to worry about what the European was doing because we would be in our rightful place.
This is what I recognize with a lot of trolls. The reality is that truth exposes them for the hypocrites and the phonies that they are. And so they attack the truth as if the truth is a lie.
Absolutely.
Or as if you must make an apology for telling the truth. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because many of our people have spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of finance in different organizations, giving up finance and time, etc., have never produced any solutions. Knowledge is solution. Setting up a trust that interferes with the processes that are used every day to steal your estate is solution. You can't make people act right. You can give them information. You understand? You can't make them do anything. As you know, Doctor, and I have documentation showing that people use the information and preserve their estate. Now, that's people who are sincere. And then there's people that know even more than I am telling you relative to preserving estate. One of the things that I recognize is when people don't know what they're dealing with, they're assuming when they're interchanging with these people that they're dealing with government operators, and they start giving them private information and making trust claims with these people, and they're really the thieves. They're not government. They don't have the authority. They've been exercising authority that they do not have. And they deliver nothing because they have nothing to deliver, if you get the point. This is why, like, over the years, I've always told people the dangers of the UCC usages. I understand what the presentment is. I understand what the promise is. But you're dealing with an imposter platform. And so you have people in organizations that register themselves with these criminals, and these criminals have been stealing your estate, and they're accelerating the liquidation. These are political activities that are currently occurring. And I think a lot of times, too, people want truth to come in flavors. No, truth is what it is. Truth is redundant. It must be redundant because the lie is proliferating. And they've been redundantly dealing with lies and energies. And what they should come up with is bring some solutions and bring it to the House of Ram and share it with us so we can expand on this information if they have solutions. Outside of that, tie up their sneaks. Because that's the real deal, because that's what most of the trolls do, because it's two things. A lot of the information, once you give reference and people do research for themselves, it makes a lot of people who were once considered credible incredible. And so they think you're attacking their leader guys and leader girls. Because when you educate people, it's hard for people to use them anymore, to make them naive followers and give them their lunch money. And I'm suggesting to you that a lot of the people that troll on those sites are people who are directly or indirectly beneficiaries of selling packages or selling processes, and this information kind of sets their bandwagon. So they attach Taj to God. But this is what I suggest. Prove what I said is wrong. Prove it that what it said in Malcolm, get your hands out of our pockets. And for some of the others, stop selling people packages, because birthright is not be sold. Administrative costs, servant is worthy of his hire. Anything beyond administrative costs is theft. Unalienable rights cannot have a lien on it. This is the absolute politics. This is not Taj's opinion. This is the politics that's going on. And that person who's trolling, or persons, should be telling the people the truth about this themselves rather than trying to suppress it. Because if they did, we'd have more energy countering this. Because this is where our problems come from. That is the root of the problem. It's not an opinion, that is the root of the problem. To talk about the symptoms and not talk about the root is not solutionary, is it? You talk about the root and the people themselves can start thinking, can't they? Like the prophet said, if I could get you all thinking again, you save yourselves. One of the things, and this is another reason why I presented earlier the Etymon degree, because for the most part, people can't read. They really can't read. Doesn't mean that they don't, look at words and pronounce them, but they can't comprehend what they're reading. And thus, tell them to go look up, tell the trolls to go look up the statistics on the reading level of these Asiatics in North America under the black brand. And you'll see it's 4th grade reading level, from the adults right on down. And the deal of it is, you're not going to have any solutions with people who cannot read. And you're not going to have any solutions with people who will not deal with reality. This is reality. This is the real politics. And what I would suggest for them to do research on this and prove Taji guy wrong. That's what I suggest. Other than that, stop wasting good people's time. Because in due time, it is persons like that that will probably have to be eliminated to save the children. In reality, when you get into the reality of this wars that has been waged against our people for generations, it's going to get to a point that you're going to have to remove some people to save your babies. And people who have been suppressing truth or trying to make people who tell the truth have to apologize for telling the truth is one of our greatest Judas factor dead weights that need to be fed to pigs. And that's the real truth. Because that's common sense. Now, if you understand that the Romans set up a global estate trust to administer over your properties, including your labor, and that all of the heads and owners of the corporate entities under England, Canada, Scotland, and the United States Service Corporation, which is a British colony, still are members of the Roman Curia. How is this information not important? And that's what's controlling your everyday life, whatever you buy or sell, whatever cards you use. When you're traveling up and down the highways, the IRS, all of them are members of the Roman Curia robbing your people. What they should be doing is helping bring some solution and helping with this venue and expanding this venue. And it doesn't come in flavors, if that's what they want, or new versions. It comes in what it is. And what you find is people aren't aware of it. And then people who have been made aware of it aren't clear on it. And so they must be clear in order to be competent. Because what you're going to have to do is start removing people out of your way who've been holding you back in the name of leadership. This is why Drali did caveat emptor, and it has not been enforced, and the people are paying for it. They actually are paying for it. Now, I would like someone to come and go into the dictionary and classify and read identity. An identification.
Identity, a verb, to determine or establish as a particular person or thing, ascertain the nature or supposed identity of. Definition 2, to consider or treat as the same, make the same or identical. He identifies money with happiness, is the sentence. Definition 3, to serve as a means of recognition or identification of. The teeth identify the skull. Definition 4, to join or associate in interest, action, etc., usually with, he identified his name with a well-known charity. Definition 5, to determine the proper genus, order, etc. And definition 6, to make identification of oneself with someone else. And he also wants me to read identification. That was identified. He wants me to read identification. It's a noun. The act or process of showing to be the same. Definition 2, the state of being shown or proved to be identical.
So now the masses have been taught that America's a country, have they not? Not too many people have corrected that or disputed that, have they? So under the rule of affidavit, it has been standing under a color of law, hasn't it?
Yeah, not reviewed.
And the true Americans have been calling themselves black. And they are not. And upon a challenge, you have leaders amongst them that insist on continuing that fraud. Haven't you?
Yes.
Which causes the operators of the corporate state, by right of abandonment, to continue to liquidate these people's estates, doesn't it? Under foreclosures, doesn't it?
Yes.
If they don't know that, they allow it to happen, don't they?
Yes.
It's being made known to you so that you can take responsibility.
All right.
Failure to do so continues the consequence. I also suggest, in truth, that if it were not for Manchurian Masons stepping in, that a lot more danger and injury would have been befallen these people in North America that are called black. But because Rome is not totally in check, but has been stagnated a little bit with their extermination plans by interference with approximately 6.5 million perfected assassins who have been countering European colonial operations on multiple levels in the background, on your behalf, in spite of the traitors amongst you, you would be seeing more injury and more blood than you do now. However, things are going to get a little worse before they get better. However, they will get better as some of the Satanists are removed out of the way. And it ain't because of your leader guys who've been betraying the prophet either. So when they get on there and knock Taji guy, guess what? I got alligator skin. Because my ego ain't in it. So you can stop the BS and get to work and help liberate these people by eliminating the platforms of these fake black scholars who keep on putting our people under the Christian black codes and then pretending they're helping the people when they know that the Christian black codes make these people non-descendable. That's a fact. That's not a Taji guy opinion. That's a political reality. And you're being made aware of it so you yourself can start throwing the shackles off. You must do it. Taji guy ain't going to do it for you. Every man, every woman, and every child must confess their own. Nobody's going to confess it for you. But if you weren't aware, you're being made aware. And being made aware, you must take responsibility. And thus the Etymon degree so you can read and no longer make excuses. And as he's given the linear entries, he's numbered from 1 to 6 so far, you're to be able to disseminate the connotative entries from the denotations, which are definitions, and make comparative relationships to the Etymon, so that you can start doing what? You can start enforcing the covenants and the treaties, and you can start neutralizing instruments that have been put upon you under a color of authority that you thought were legitimate, that were actually set up to steal your birthright and estate. And for those children that have little left anymore, start putting your stuff in trust, since the traders amongst our own undermine Noble Drew Ali's setup of the trust and won't teach trust law. They really definitely won't. And they're not going to teach constitutional principle, which is why we started sharing with you some examples of trust so you can start protecting your families on your own. And in due time, when some Moors come into this movement with their eyes already open and start cleaning up these temples, we can get some good foundations and you can put your stuff in trust under the temples where it should have been in the first place. However, if you've got these traders running them, you understand Rome is going to liquidate everything you got. They're going to take everything from you. And these guys are getting paid in the background whether you know it or not. Which is why they preoccupy their time criticizing Taji guys who are getting to work on the hedges and the highways. So my issue is to get as much information to you and get it clear to you so that you will have something to act on. But in knowing the history, you already know the motive. If you don't know the history, you don't suspect the motive. If you don't know the motive, you're not inspired to uplift the movement because you won't recognize its importance. Are we clear? Clear. How many people raise your hand and know what a allodial title is? You took a minute, but let's go. How many people know what aboriginal titles are? Everything in the Moorish Science Temple of America, Moorish Temple of Science, Old Canaanite temples across North America are supposed to be in allodial title. And them people called grand chiefs and chiefs are supposed to have told you about this decades ago. And we don't have to argue whether they did or not because they spend so much time criticizing me for exposing this information. Because that's what everything is supposed to be in trust in under the Moorish Science Temple under allodial title. Are we clear? Clear. So I'm telling you so you can study and you can start enforcing law. And like Drew Ali said, if nobody else enforces that law, you be that one. Are we clear? Clear. But I'm also suggesting to you, not because I say so, because I expect you to use your intelligence and to do a little bit of research. You do a little bit of research and you're going to find out how much trouble you're in right now. I want you all to look up the Act of Congress 1871. I want you to look up the Buck Act, the Negro Act, Trading with the Enemy Act, the setup of the Federal Reserve, etc. And even when J.P. Morgan and them sank the Titanic in order to establish the Federal Reserve. That's why the Titanic was sunk. It didn't hit no iceberg, they torpedoed it. That was done to set up the Federal Reserve for the Jesuits. And you're going to start finding out a lot more other stuff that's going to be exposed. But the deal of it is, what we're trying to get you to do, because you have so much treason amongst you and so much schism, certain things we do tell you redundantly because we need you to act on your own. Are we clear? Clear. You get together with people of like mind, however, you don't have the luxury to be passive. Do you understand? You don't have that luxury. Now, Drew Ali said, if you have to make the earth your bed, the ether is your blanket, declare your nationality, because he already knows that most of you are going to lose your estates. It's almost like we can tell you these people this stuff forever and redundantly, like some person say, and they don't take this stuff serious. But we're in a mood right now that Rome is accelerating. So we're not going to have to keep telling you too much longer because you're going to feel it. Even though they're not going to be able to satisfy their debt, they're going to sacrifice as many of you that they can to try to buy time. Are we clear? Clear. Now, as I understand it, they were given a few contracts or promise of contracts with some funding that may keep them afloat for the next couple of months. But it's not enough, it's in the billions, it's not in the trillions. And their operations require trillions. So all the programs, the Negro programs that they've been buying these people off with, they're going to collapse. And they're going to steal your bank accounts if you got them. So just, get used to it already. So do the best you can. Like the prophet said, put some water away, put some dry foods away so that you can survive when they try to starve you out. Because they're already in the process of trying to starve you out. They're going to accelerate it. And tell the trolls, come up with some solutions. Yes.
Can you repeat those 4 points that you asked us to study again? You said the Act of Congress 1871.
1871.
The Buck Act. Mm-hmm.
Trading with the Enemy Act. And sinking of the Titanic for the purpose of setting up the Federal Reserve platform for the Jesuit order. To rob you. And the people being passive has gotten us pretty much where we are now. And the other deal is, you can sell this to the trolls too. Stop looking for sacrificial lambs, you ain't getting none. Put your ass on the battlefield and help get this work done. Because when the people start recognizing the traitors that they are, some of the people are going to get rid of them themselves. And they'll no longer be able to hold up the progress. Because it's people like that that's been pretty much, the secret traitors. And those are the ones that the CIA and the Southern poverty firm usually approach to come on the sites to troll. And if you do a little research, you can start seeing, start doing some little research. Because there's technology to start tracing some of these people, and you'll find out that they're being paid. Because what they want to do, because when you wake up, as you all wake up, a lot of the subdivisional agencies that the Europeans operate don't work. And then their little black budgets for the little Negro leader troll guys, then they don't get their funds. That's why they get out here and try to criticize. Because they know this stuff is true. They do. But they're indirect, and people aren't aware that these guys are getting paid off. That includes guys that's constantly taking the noble cause of uplifting our people and having people fight each other in ridiculous debates, disgracing the platform. Yeah. That's a diversion, that's a COINTELPRO operation. It's a COINTELPRO operation.
No names here. No names.
It's a COINTELPRO operation. And I am knocking it is what it is. But you need to know what it is because it's not in your interest. It's not in your interest. I think a lot of times, and what has happened with a lot of people, by them not being aware of the real political platforms, they think that this information is ours and has nothing to do with them. You understand what I'm saying to you?
They Moors, they don't know they Moors.
Go ahead.
There's one more important definition that's real key to why we stay divided within identification. A process by which an individual usually subconsciously behaves or imagines himself behaving as if he were a person with whom he has formed an emotional tie. Yeah. For instance, black.
Now,
Islam.
You take that, and remember Drew Ali says, your nationality card will change in your pocket. It changes when your consciousness changes. And you'll defend it once you really comprehend what's really going on. And what you'll see is people will start conversations about the symptoms of what's going on here politically and could not give you truth on the political platform. Yeah. That's why I'm giving you the truth on the political platform. Because if you don't know this, you cannot comprehend the politics. You can't. Concepts will be absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. And I think that sometimes, people have been trained for so many generations with belief systems, and, like a different song, they want a new flavor. Truth doesn't come in flavors. It's what it is. It doesn't change. It doesn't pass away. And people have been dealing with belief systems, and they're looking for something different with beliefs. No, you're not going to get that here. You're going to get the truth, and you're going to have to deal with it. And your beliefs, not knocking it, put it to the test. Because I guarantee you it ain't going to work. Now, this is what everybody must comprehend. All your rights, all properties, all hereditaments, I don't have the mic.
Yeah.
All rights, all your property, all your labor, all hereditaments, corporal and incorporeal, are presently and have been for generations hypothecated. The operators of the board of directors for the United States Service Corporation, who've been calling themselves governors and mayors and senators and congressmen, are all subdivisional members of the Roman Curia. And they've been working toward that end. All of them are Knights Templars or Knights of Malta or Shriners or Masons of different degrees, and in secret wear a Moorish fez with the commitment of administrating over the Moorish Empire, i.e. they are the jurymen over the Moorish estate. The heirs of the estate are required by right of law to answer up to constitutional principles and to speak up. If they fail to speak up, their estate is considered abandoned anyway. And what it does, it gives the European leave to make the claim that he's been making. The idea that people have had that they've been paying off debts are fictional. You're not allowed to pay off debts because the debt is part of the unum sanctum policy of the Roman Inquisition hegemony, which is why they gave you a private commercial paper instrument controlled by the Jesuit orders, etc., under the auspices of the board of directors of the United States Service Corporation, called U.S. dollars, which are not. They're debt instruments belonging to the United States Service Corporation company that was bankrupted in 1860. And the national debt is the fiction of them putting their private debt on the nationals, which is the Moorish Americans who have been preoccupied calling themselves black people. Are we clear? And being reinforced by people who you've trusted, who know this information, which is why when this information comes out, they start criticizing it, because it will uncover every fraud operating. Not because I said so. Once you start doing it, you will see it yourself. And what you will start doing is stop feeding the beast, and thus the beast collapses. And your estate is returned to you by default, not because they're giving you any process of restoring your estate. They have no intentions of restoring your estate. They have intentions of killing off the heirs. Are we clear?
Clear.
In any program that they set up to buy faith, blind faith, is to buy time. Are we clear?
Clear.
So the national debt is a fictional debt transferred on the heirs, i.e. the Moorish Americans who Noble Drawley came to redeem. So he came to redeem the heirs, the proper heirs. The Europeans gave up their birthright when they started agreeing to be white people with the Knights of Columbus Ku Klux Klan oath of 1854, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Knights of Columbus Ku Klux Klan oath of 1863, Chicago, Illinois, etc. Under the Whittemore Party operations and the Republican order, where under Horace Greeley they took on the noble titles of white people, which is a status title having nothing to do with complexion. And in the process of stealing your estate and your birthright, they lost their own. This is what the politics really are right now. Are we clear?
Clear.
And so what you see taking place is that the nations of the earth are dumping the U.S. corporations' T-bonds that's based against the Moorish estate. Are we clear? And they're trying to hide that fact. They're trading places. This is why the identity theft is so important. This is why the 14th Amendment straw transmitting utility platform for the U.S. democracy operators and directors is so important to them. They have no intention whatsoever of honoring any treaty or any process under UCCs or anything else like that. They're just buying time. Which is why the Manchurians put out assassins, start eliminating certain members and arresting certain members, and they got about a couple of thousand warrants right now operative that they started initiating the other day. And over half the Congress is going to be thrown in jail. And they're not congressmen. They're actually board of directors. And the only reason it's happening is because if they don't fix it, everything collapses. So they're going to be forced to do it. Islam says. I want you to like.
Islam. I know for a fact that our U.S. dollar is not being accepted worldwide. I have a business where I order supplies online, and I'm starting to get, it started recently, I'd say in the past year. In the past years, people have been coming back to me saying, sorry, we accept U.S. dollars. And it's more and more plus, more people that I order from because they will not accept it at all.
Now, what you're going to see is going to be accelerating.
It
It's
is.
going to be accelerating.
Yeah.
You know, now, and so this is what's happening. The Honorable, for whatever degree, because I don't knock him, the Honorable Mr. Donald Trump is being assigned to do a dog and pony show. And to, you know, because I'm not going to knock him because in spite of what people think they understand about him, he's doing more good than bad. He's doing what's necessary. You know, and because our people don't know the politics, they immediately take a negative on Donald Trump. Although he's doing a two-mask type thing, and I understand that, you know, but you need to understand what I showed you here to understand Donald Trump. You need to understand that he's operating from this perspective. And just because a lot of people ain't talking this, you know, it's sort of like a lot of other subject matters people are talking about, and it's not that they're not important, because they are, but it's all predicated in this. And so if they're not dealing with this, they're not going to deal with any other solutions. Because the solution is to fix this. You don't fix this, all the other things are symptoms. Now, what you're going to see, they're going to start making it more difficult for you to move things in the account that you think is yours. Not only with the lack of acceptance, what I suggest you do, go look up House Joint Resolution 2748. I think it's 2748, and it's under the guise of employment. Because they plan to steal your account. Go ahead, brother.
Not being negative, but how do you fix nearly 50 million Moors? How are you proposing, not you, but how are you going to, quote, fix, unquote?
This is what you do. Now, our illustrious prophet brought this information to us 102 years ago, on 103. And he told the Moors that the half had not been told. That if he told you everything, you go back to sleep. He said, study. Logically, you understood and comprehended that if you study, you find out a lot of other things.
Right.
And he warned you that he does not want passive Moors. He wants active Moors. He's not denying them their birthright, because they're Moors. But the reality is that passive people have a tendency to become traitors, and they will become enemies to the cause. So we come to venues like this seeking active people, not passive people. And this is why even when you come to positive venues, you have trollers that take the passive position to try to pull people back into the passive venue, because many of them are actually working in the dark shadows. You'd be surprised how many people amongst you that you don't know are COINTELPRO operatives, knowingly. You know, so you don't be surprised, and you don't like give it too much energy, because you know that they're there. What you want to do is try to bring the people to as reasonable level of cognizance and competence. Because when you do, it will be, your protocols will be obvious. Obvious. Meaning that when you go into some of the battles that took place with people that were assigned authority under Noble Drawleys, say like Kirkman Bay, Nailah, and others, and you see the fights that they've had, the hiding of a lot of the papers and stuff like that, and you start recognizing, if you get past personality, don't get personal. Stay with principle. And you'll see that the Moors, the grand body of Moors, have been cheated. Really cheated. Really cheated. But you don't, if you do take time to study, you can bypass these people who have been blockers, or called suppressants. And like I've always said, you know, people just even did a little bit of research, even in the FBI papers. They could see, even through the redaction, the sellout, and the processes, and some of the attitudes of some of these people claim to be black leaders, and some of these people claim to be more sheiks and sheikesses. You see them like a neon sign. Not because I said so. All you got to do is look at the FBI papers and watch their actions. Watch how they respond to people who teach constitutional law and civics. It tells you everything. Everything. As soon as they start critiquing, and then go look at the FBI papers, and you know why they're doing it. It's just that people aren't exposed to this information, which is why they're sometimes graded, trying to figure out stuff, you're trying to work their way out. Meanwhile, they're under attack. At the point, Rome's attacking them, and they're trying to learn at the same, they're on a learning curve. And then the leader guys are in position, tell them, Gerald, you didn't teach no civics. This is just a religious organization. No, this is a divine and national movement. It's what it is. It's a divine and national movement. You know, but again, people have to learn that for themselves. And like I say, don't believe me. You know, do some research. I will give you certain points. And I have a lot, most of the stuff I do, I water down. You know, because people have a tendency to get lazy. You know what I mean? But what I try to do is give primal, or what I call matrix information, or what you call maxims, that leave very little room for dispute. Leave very little room for dispute. And when people dispute it, it's because they're either hating or they're a troll. They won't call it a lie. They don't listen to this stuff. They won't say it's a lie, because if they go that way, then they will be proven to be liars. And if some of you lost your homes and your properties behind these people, you know, in due time, some of you will take care of them. You know, and it will become necessary. It's unfortunate, but in war there's casualties. You know, and the unfortunate thing that we have now is that the European is accelerating the liquidation. And so this is why you see all these false flags, stuff that they're doing all over in other words, they're trying to make themselves relevant because they're becoming irrelevant. But sis, and this is the deal, the world has decided to stop feeding the harlot. and to step off. But everybody's vested so deeply that everybody's hurting. So they're doing it incrementally. And you're seeing the signs of it. When I was in Long Beach, California, and in Los Angeles, you know, you've seen ships out there that were docked from even last year with last year's Christmas stuff because they ain't set from US dollars. As a matter of fact, even as I've heard yesterday, some of the companies under the OPEC operations aren't accepting US dollars either. They want silver, minimum. And so what they did, they shot down one of the helicopters with about 8 or 9 Saudi princes in it the other day. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and there's a lot of horse trading that's going on, but understand it can't be but so long until it comes home. Like Malcolm said, chickens come home to roost. And we're doing what we can, humbly to what we can, to help our people best as we can. And
we thank you.
if your consciousness is not risen, you won't survive this thing. It's true. I mean, you know, we need to stop playing because these people are going to find themselves on the curb in the winter because they're going to take everything. That's what they're. Part of it is anger on their part. They know this land is not theirs. They know this property is not theirs. But they've been stealing people's houses. They've been stealing your property because when they steal the houses, that allow them to get your stuff because you had to put your stuff in storage. Then they steal. That's how they've been doing. And then they've been selling people's stuff from these storage places. You know, and then people been having strokes from stress. And so they're feeding the medical industry, etc. They're breaking families, you know. But I say this, and this is why we tell people put their stuff in trust, because what it does, it puts a bridge between you and them, meaning that they can't just roll over your stuff. As an example, one of the things that's currently going on. There's as a matter of fact, there's two people that I can talk definitely at this moment that they were coming last year to remove them under writs of execution. And because they had started these things and really are not totally clear, but what it did, it put brakes on the sheriff. They couldn't execute. Because they ran into the trust. They ran into the trust. And these people are in their proper person. And then the other problem that you've had is a lot of people over the years that have done UCCs, they've been overriding them. Because they're not in their proper person. They've been going through all the process, everything proper according to the process, honorably, and they've been overriding. Go ahead.
We're working on our allodial. They're going to override us on that as well.
Now, let's keep this very, very clear.
She's not under mortgage. It's paid. It's paid.
No, it's not.
Well, let me get it.
No, stop. No.
I understand. There is something.
No, it's not that. It's not that.
Come on, teach.
It's not that. It's not that. Let me show you something. It's not that. That's a wrong. That's what the Europeans have been saying. No. Listen, I'm going to explain to you. I know exactly what you're saying, but what we need to do is get absolutely correct. Are we clear? Now, let me see this. And this is why we also give this to people in the study class so that they could have a concept of the real politics, because these people are board of directors for they're board of directors for the United States Service Corporation. Now remember this. What year did Noble Raleigh set up the Old Canaanite Temple for the restoration of the estate?
1913.
What year did Woodrow Wilson convert all allodial titles and aboriginal titles to mortgages and liens?
1913.
All right, so let's go into congressional record. And this is to show you when people pretend they don't know this, whether they're politicians or black believer troll guys. That's your reference. Go ahead and reference this yourself. Congressional records, all right. That's Tropicon's speech. But let's go down to subject matter. Right there. Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title to property, free and clear of any liens or mortgages, until the Federal Reserve Act 1913 hypothecated all property within the federal United States to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, in which the trustees, so you're talking about a trust, aren't you? Because that's the global estate trust that the Pope set up. They're board of directors for it. Board of trustees, stockholders, you're held as stock. Held legal title. The U.S. citizen, see why they broke that 14th Amendment? Which is a tenant and a franchisee, you're not an owner, a tenant. You're sharecropping. Was registered as a beneficiary of the trust via her birth certificate in 1933. That's what Delano Roosevelt did. That's why they got rid of Noble Raleigh in 29. But it crashed anyway. The federal United States hypothecated all the present and future properties, assets, and labor of their quote-unquote subjects, the 14th Amendment U.S. citizen, to the Federal Reserve. See why I gotta say that, baby?
You own nothing.
You're sharecropping.
Right.
Even her proper person.
You're sharecropping. So what you do is you put it in trust and convert it back to a allodial title. Under mortgages and deed is not paid. It's called, write this down, set off and discharged. None of which is a payment. It's a set off, which means it's pushed off to the future, but not satisfied. That's why they're going to liquidate it. You're doing everything that you're supposed to do, giving them the Federal Reserve notes. In your mind, in our mind, you're making payments. It's called de donis. Write that down. De donis is a gift. And they can foreclose at any time. I don't care how far you up. This is what it is. Proper person, put it in a allodial title and put it in trust. And then put a lien on it. Yes. That's how we say. Say again. No, see, no, I know what you're saying. See, you're not getting it.
Concept.
The idea that it's paid off is misrepresented because it isn't. The tax continues, it's a payment. It's still a tithe on it. Because it's not property. See, allodial property, there is no tax. There is no lien on it. The lien exists because it's under mortgaged. See, the idea that the mortgage is eliminated is a false presentment. They're telling you that, but it's not true. It's still liened. See, stop thinking that they're moral. No, it's not just for you. I'm talking to everyone.
Yes.
Stop thinking that they're moral. Stop thinking that when you make payments, that's how it goes in the book. It doesn't go in the book as a payment. It goes in the book as the donors. And what they do is that they discharge and set off the debt against your nationality. It's called the national debt. And it keeps rising because it ain't paid. Do you understand? You know what hypothecated means? Write it down. Hypothecated. Now, again, identity crisis. We're assuming things that are not true. We're assuming things to be settled that are not settled. They're never settled. This is the source of their power, is the deception.
Hey, Brother Taj.
Yes, go ahead.
Islam. Well, how do we create a trust that's not a creature of state?
Aren't you a national?
I am not.
Is she a proper person? Yes. All right, that's what you do. That's why Gilliam said, if you don't do anything else, declare your nationality. Now let's look at this. Let's look at yes. Now let's look at in the Pope's letter to Obama. Let's look at the last part of it. Now, in the entry, the commentary that goes about the Act of Congress 1871 is telling you some of this fraud that we're talking about. Well, let's go to the bottom part of the letter. And then understand the 14th Amendment, understand what Gilliam is talking about too. Put all this stuff in context because the politics is meaning it's all manifesting now. This is the whole point. The prophecies are manifesting. You're living them. Excuse me, I apologize. All legal fiction entities, however structured, that's talking about the straws. However structured and named after the American states and the American state citizens. This would be the all capitals that's on that instrument that you have that's mortgage. It's not you, it's an estate. Look at it, it's all capital letters. All capital letters. It's an estate. Are returned to them and their control, free and clear of any debt, promise, encumbrance, obligation alleged against them as a result of false claims made in their behalf by officers of the United States of America Incorporated. And the United States all Incorporated, uppercase. Those are two different corporation shells that were created continuously to steal the Moorish birthright. By officers of the United States of America Incorporated, United States Incorporated, or by any foreign officials operating in the United States of America minor. They're all foreign officials. They're impostoring. And these are the people you're dealing with. Or the United Nations city-state falsely claiming to, quote-unquote, represent them or have jurisdiction over them. We note that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago. You're dealing with this whole area here that we're giving you this history, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans. Who are the African Americans? They're really the Moorish Americans, who were summarily claimed as chattels backing U.S. government debt in wake of the Civil War, despite every act of abolition and declaration of prohibition against both peonage and slavery. It has been the policy of the U.S. government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state among the nations of the world. Instead of freeing African Americans, the sum total result of the Civil War was to vastly expand public sector ownership of slaves, giving rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and the American state citizens that we are dealing with today. It is uniquely fitting that the Grand Army of the Republic is recalled to settle the circumstance in favor of the people. Attachments. Civil orders, Anna Maria Wilhelmina Hanna Sophia Ritzinger von Ritzenstein von Letlow Verbeck, private attorney in service to His Holiness Pope Francis. Documents related to the United States isn't a country, it's a corporation. Hidden Vatican Crown Empire. So, now the Pope was telling you, he owns it. They're trying to fix it because they're under pressure. Manchurian Masons are dropping their bankers and other people, and secretly they're negotiating. And they're doing a 10-for-1, and we're sitting around thinking that we own stuff. It's hypothecated. Being in your proper person, you have right of claim. Make your claim. Do you understand? So when they come after it, they're hitting a wall. Do you understand? The rightest thing you did is being in your proper person, because under the Negro Acts, that Black Codes, guess what? You got that right twice. You know, and these are fundamental. If people just knew the fundamentals of what's going on, they'd fix this stuff themselves. They wouldn't have to need no Raleigh tell you to declare your nationality. You would do it on your own. But if nobody expose this stuff, our people just think it's information. It's interesting stuff. You know, oh, them guys over there. You know, and this is your estate. It's your birthright. And this goes back to some criminal Moors that keep on trying to own the birthright, talking about you ain't part of our club, ain't part of our temple, you can't be Moorish American. That's your bloodline. That's unalienable. It can't be bought or sold. You ain't belong to our temple, therefore you ain't no more. They want to hang them types too. Once they start seeing these babies dying and stuff. See, they're letting these people off with this stuff right now because they don't, put it this way, the fire ain't really under their butts like it's going to be. When it really gets under their butts, a lot of these people who have been betraying the prophet, they better try to go to the moon. Because some of the most mild people, when they realize how much their families have been sacrificed because of these fakers.
Yes.
No, believe. See, they ain't got enough pain yet. You know, because when we start messing with babies and stuff, people get a little different. And they've been sacrificing the babies too. These people don't know how demonic these people are. They just hear a little, but you ain't hearing nothing yet. You're going to get these Negro leaders that been keeping this black thing going on that you just thought was a matter of opinion, and you recognize that they're coming to, they've been selling your babies. Some of these nice, calm mothers, it's going to be really different. You know, women are nice and soft and stuff. But let them get mad. I don't know too many people that win. But seriously. But this is the point. See, the trust, the faith that you have is that you honorably made transactions on an instrument called the mortgage and completed the trade. I'm just saying, when you say it's paid off.
No, she never went into a mortgage.
Yeah, but even if you did cash type thing, see, it doesn't. See, this the idea of it being satisfied is the deception. See, it's not what you did.
Can't satisfy.
The idea of satisfaction. Yes, warranty deed. Yes. Now, this is what. Now, you take the special warranty deed, and you're supposed to ask for it anyway. They're supposed to give it to you anyway. And then you take this and you convert it into a quick claim and into an allodial title. It must go back to its original format to be safe. let's be clear. Let's be clear. Any instrument under the U.S. Service Corporation that alleges to secure an estate is itself colored. It must be returned to in its allodial status.
Allodial, yes.
Which is why Woodrow Wilson converted all allodial titles in the first place, to set the platform up for the deception, to make people think they completed a cycle, and they didn't. You know, it's like, remember years ago when the Mom Bell thing, people was buying these gold-plated phones and stuff? I had one.
But you didn't know that.
This ain't your phone. And you spend all that finance? It wasn't your phone. So this is, let's be real. This is what's happening. See, and this is back to understanding what birthright theft is. What they're talking about that 150 years ago is this old stuff here. Yeah. So while the people are sitting around talking about racism and prejudice, they're actually on the stock market. That's why you have trolls that come on there to try to divert from this information. Because a lot of them have been helping to maintain this, and they've been getting paid off in the background.
Woo!
See, because people trust people that look like you and me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Especially if they got a title.
Yes.
You understand? But once you know this, they can't hide, can they?
No.
Did Taj, you guys say this?
No.
No.
That's direct to President Obama from the Pope himself. And what Obama do? He did the best he could. He said he was real American flag, didn't he? He signed the rights of indigenous people?
Yes, sir.
Did Taj, you guys say that, or did he do that?
Yeah.
Thank you, trolls. So the deal of it is, what we've got to do is choke the beast. You can't feed the beast and get satisfied. What is the key that is acknowledged by all the nation states? And we're talking about including their number 1 and 2 allies, that's France and Germany. What did they do with Germany's gold before they dropped their buildings in New York and said that Moscow was dealing with box cutters? Yes. They sent diplomats from Germany to Land of Nod,
New York,
Amsterdam, you call New York, to check on their gold. Because they had enumerated. That's what they gave them. Right?
Yeah.
2 months later, the buildings dropped, and they said some Muslims in the cave with box covers was carving things, hieroglyphs on the wall, and made the buildings fall down. Been lying and stuff. Well, of course they lied. They stole gold. One of the trucks got really So the deal of it is, that's one of their number 1 allies. And to understand, after the Second World War, Germany's constitution is designed as a vassal state under the United States Service Corporation under the Jesuit order. So it's like a front government. And Angela Merkel is actually Hitler's daughter. All right, so they've been robbing them too. And so that's kind of shaky. So in the background, they've been making more contracts with Russia, and most of the energy fuels for Eastern Europe, except Western Europe and part of Eastern Europe, coming from Russia. And U.S. corporation operatives started that war in Crimea as a distraction because the pipeline that they're setting up coming from Iran, Iraq to Syria to the ports, which would further interrupt the forced operation of conversion of foreign currencies under the U.S. petrol fraud dollar to get things for free, which is what they've been doing, which is what this countermeasure is going on. That's what that war in Syria is about, etc. So the rest of the world already knows the reality of these politics. The people that don't know the reality of the politics are mostly the people here that think human beings are crayons. The Europeans know, but the heirs to the estate still talking around light-skinned, orange-skinned black people and all this stuff, and I'm gonna do UCCs and I'm gonna authenticate that birth certificate that Franklin Delano Roosevelt did and get a hold of this grand trust and stuff, and all they're doing is giving Rome time. And then excusing Rome. He's never honored anything. Right. That is a platform for demons. They are Satanists. They have this is what they do: befriend, embrace, devour. That's their policy. Write that down so you never forget it. Befriend, debate, embrace, devour. And I know some of you, not all of you, because most of you are young, but some of you elders have knowledge of family members, and some family members who know other family members that have been in the different, what they call theaters. They don't even always call them wars, theaters, where the Roman Unum Sanctum operations are going on around the world. That's where they go in the nations, say they ain't Christians or they don't like Jesus, then they go bomb them, kill the women and children, steal their resources. And many of these Asiatics can speak of family members who, upon entry into those theaters, have been told, "What the hell are you doing here, brother?"
Yeah.
And these are the only Asiatics that don't recognize they're Asiatics. And a lot of them was living because they was given a pass and still don't get it. Still don't get it. So it becomes necessary for Manchurians from the old ancient dragon families to set out upon the earth from a pool of over 20 million perfected assassins to counter European colonial operations to a point of terminal, one way or the other. They still have the toys and the advanced technology and everything, but the promise is take one, we take 10, see who lasts. Meanwhile, the heirs are still sitting around playing these black games with their black leader guys, with the help of trolls, who are betraying the principal cause of the miseries, not just here, but of the rest of the world, because there's going to be some people that's going to come here from other nations that are going to take care of some of these black leader guys too. Because if it wasn't for them, a lot of their families would be living. You got to understand why the world don't like black people. And black is not an identity. It's a traitor class. They're called conversos.
Amen.
They're called conversos. When you talk to other nationals outside of the shores, the people here that call themselves Christian blacks are conversos. They will sell their babies, hiding behind Jesus, doing the most evil and vile things the world has ever known, going to and fro the earth, devouring nations for Rome, and then come back and start black marches and stuff. I think the world don't see them for just who they are, hypocrites, and the trolls that they send out to try to block this information. Anyway, so that's congressional records. That's a letter from Pope to Francis to Obama. So when people be assuming, see, mortgage, and you look this up, look in the dictionary. As a matter of fact, I want to show you something. Watch this, y'all. Look at mortgage. I like this system. That's how she is. That's authority. It's got a technique going on too. Go ahead.
Okay. Mortgage. An estate created by a conveyance absolute in its form, but intended to secure the performance of some act, such as the payment of money and the like, by grantor or some other person, and to become void if the act is performed agreeably to the terms prescribed at the time of making such conveyance.
Now, this is what happens when you made the agreement. I'm going to tell you what happened. You paid cash and you didn't do all that, right? And they give you a deed, right? And alleged. Now, and this is what happens. Any properties held under corporate states or any of the subdivisional franchisees, agencies, are held in deed and mortgage, whether they're allegedly paid for or not. Conclusory is assumed, but never is done. And what they do, they take the instruments and they register it under a pooling service. And then whereas they say that you don't have payments, they put a tax on it, a property tax. And that property tax becomes a payment. It's just like a mortgage payment anyway. You know what I mean? Now, this is the whole deal. No, this is what they do. We're talking about not you necessarily because you're conscious. However, but this is what they do and will try to enforce, lest you have remedy. All right? And then whenever, like I said, they want the property for whatever reason, for any minerals that's under it, or if they want to develop something, they'll just execute what is called eminent domain and take it. And they're not sovereigns. See, this goes back to the identity theft and the identity crisis. Because they claim to be Americans when they're really stockholders for the United States Service Corporation. And they're converting that status implied that they are the Americans. Now let's go back up here and look what the Pope is talking about, so we can kind of look at the distinction of identity theft. Notice the estates in the States. Now, no enforcement of any American state or American state citizen is owed as a result of any act of any Congress operating as the sovereign government of the United States of America minor, nor the board as board of directors or board of trustees of any incorporated entity whatsoever. So what they've been doing, all instruments that come under them are actually on the stock market, and they're representing your estate, even though you didn't ask them. This is where the whole fraud comes in. And at any time they desire, they can foreclose. And in your mind, I paid for it. No, that's an assumption. It's not what took place. It's not what's on the record. What they do is they take their ledgers, and in spite of whatever you have done, cash or whatever, what you think, we're talking about what you thought to do and what is. What people consider cash is private commercial paper. All right? It has no value unless it comes through the Jesuit order, through the Federal Reserve, which was set up after they sunk the Titanic. All right? In order to force that. So they got rid of competition. Are we clear? J.P. Morgan then did that. Now, so every instrument that is used in transaction is an assumed ownership when they're actually sharecropping instruments. So if one would say, under the fraud, I own something, you'd start showing deed or certificate, preposition of title, all of which is not titled. The only thing that's titled is allodial. Only thing is titled allodial and aboriginal title.
Islam.
Wilson took care of that in 1913.
Now, but we're
Yes.
going
That's what we're supposed to
Yeah, and that's what, and I know that. But what I'm talking to you for is for everyone else. If you understand. I understand and comprehend where you're going. I want what you're saying clear for everyone else. Are we clear?
Yes.
Because there's an assumption of ownership where it doesn't exist. All hereditaments, corporal and incorporeal, have been hypothecated. That's the fraud. That's what Drew Ali came to restore, your right of estate, your lost estate. And that's why the traders keep talking everything else but this information. No, Drew Ali, praise Allah. No Drew Ali. He makes good peanut butter sandwiches. And they worship him. It's not what he came for. He came for you to enforce the law. And he said, if you don't believe that his program is right, go to those who know law. And then leader guys will be saying that Drew Ali didn't teach civics. That's the highest level of civics. Constitutional enforcement. And they've been getting away with it. And our people are being injured because they are behind the 8 ball and things are happening. Do you understand? We're in the midst of a war being waged against us. So our people don't even know war is being waged on them. And these criminals, justice is on time. Islam's a brother.
You mentioned the word eminent domain.
Yes.
And it says the right of the state or sovereign to take private property for public use. Since eminent domain is an inherent attribute of sovereignty, the individual property owner's consent to the taking is immature. The Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution requires that the just compensation be made whenever private property is taken for public use by the Congress.
All right. And now, so what's happening? So you have a board of directors pretending to be Congress and exercising sovereign power that they do not have, and the heirs of the states are busy claiming to be black and Negroes with the help of trolls to undermine the platform. That's what that whole thing is about. We're showing you the connection. That's what we're doing. You know better, but where your head is where everybody's head needs. The people who are listening need to comprehend where your head is. You give them an opportunity to see it in action, although they can't see everything that you're doing. You're demonstrating where we're trying to get our people to operate and to accelerate and to do it yesterday. No, day before yesterday. Because this is the deal. Even when you're right, they abridge.
Right.
So the more people that we have who are competent and active, not passive, it will put brakes on it. Even when the people aren't totally clear that they are making an effort of reversion. No standing reversion is called adverse claim, isn't it? If you have no ongoing adverse claim, your claim is abandoned. I don't care how much you've done, what you put in it, whatever you claim, it makes no difference. However, it is well that those things are being checked. I mean, they're going to sacrifice a lot of people, yes. It can't be stopped. What we can do is limit the bloodshed. But it's like anything else. When you see something and you know something is coming, and you try your best to warn people, and people don't take it serious. And then the trains are on the track and they having a picnic. At the intersection. Come on, these sandwiches are good. Have one. No.
Yes, Mom.
Turn the mic on.
I had an incident last week, a week ago, Thursday. I work out in the morning and I came home about 8:30. The police were on my property, the sheriffs were there, the moving truck, everything. And the sheriff said, "Hi, Gloria, you know what I'm here for, don't you?" I said, "I don't know what you're here for, but let me show you my paperwork." And I showed him, he said, "Well, let me make a call." So he made the call, and then everybody had to go home.
See, this is the deal. Now remember, what is the predication of their operations? We're assumed to be beneficiaries of their private trust to back their debt since the Civil War. Nobody Ali pulled you out of that dead status. There is nothing in that status that can be done that's legitimate that will hold up in law. A lot of promises, a lot of HMO processes, site drafts, UCCs, financial statement claims, now birth certificate, all meaning the same thing. Well, for the last 35, 40 years, the HMOs, then site drafts, then affidavits to transportation department, then UCCs, then financial statements, now birth certificate. All of them are attempting to get their hands into that global estate trust. And you ask the average person about the global estate trust and they don't know what you're talking about, but they know all these other processes. When they don't even know the history of what this thing is all about. That's the foundation of the whole politics. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And they keep going for these con artist games, and it buys the European time. That's why the Manchurians have to step in, because we're like gullible. It's the same thing, the same horse. They keep spray paint the horse and sell them back how they keep losing. The HMOs and the birth certificate argument, same thing. UCCs and dedication of birth certificate, same thing. Affidavit to the transportation department and the UCC, same thing. They're different angles still for the one purpose of trying to get their hands or control of the global estate trust. Jesuits ain't giving it up. Do you understand what I'm saying? That is the ball of wax. Meaning they have to be taken down. Anything created in color remains in color. And we're not colored people. Are we clear? Yeah. So the redundancy is for clarity. Because we need, because if we can get people to fix this, the other stuff fixes itself. Because most of the other things are symptoms of this issue. And, the idea that people even have that they're paying things off, is really interesting. But anyway, I want to thank you all for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds. For those who are listening, for the little that you can share, make sure that you help Dr. Nailah to keep this venue open. And Sister Roz comes here, and she has the books, a lot of the literature that you'll need. And Brother Abdullah Iltalim Bey comes here. He's one of the best etymologists in the country. In fact, it's not just because he's our boy, because it's just simply the truth. He's about as good as they come. And always improving. Always improving. Now, and I've known him over the years, and I have to be honest with you, I thought I was a bookworm. That brother studies. Brother Abdullah, studies. I remember I used to, share some of my books in my library with them. I had to get them back sometimes. It was my book. Yeah, but anyway, and the brothers, he's written quite a few impactful books that are some of your most important books of recent literature. Make sure you acquire them.
When is he here?
When is
he here?
Is that the
Second Friday. He was here last Friday. He'll be back on the second. Every second Friday, he's here.
Yes. Yes. Let's see what else I want to. Now listen. In your claim says, this is the nature of a reversion. See, when you, and that is, when I say that you, that's a plural you, comprehend what is going on with the heirs of the estate being held as surety. This is what you need to understand. It's not what you agreed to. And it's not what you agreed to. It's not what your mother agreed to. It's what they've done in the name of your mothers and your fathers and yourselves. They've pledged your life, your labor, your properties to back U.S. government debt since the Civil War. That's why the reversioner is an adverse claim. And so and just say your name loud, because you know when you're proud.
Lena Bay.
I, Lynn Bay, the living sentient woman. Say.
Lena.
Lena.
Oh, sound like my mom. That's my mom. My mom's Lena. My mother's Lena Ruth.
Lena May.
Lena Ruth.
I'm Lena May.
Yeah, Lena May. Yes, Lena Ruth. Oh, yeah. Is that story? I, Lena May, living sentient woman, and rightful heir, am not lost at sea, as accounted to unum sanctum. And I affirm and declare my right of reversion of estate, and therefore I make no claim with respect to the title and misrepresented name, man, or straw, nom de guerre being a title, and the spurious creations of the foreign de facto United States corporate operators, actors, and owners. And I surrender and assign any and all reversionary interests to the United States and its subsidiaries for full acquittance, discharge, settlement, and closure of my reliance, Title 18, United States Code 95A, Part 2. I assume no liabilities or debts, however contrived, among its associates, and I do not consent to stand as surety for the foreign, private, and for-profit United States Incorporated, U.S. corporation, company, entity owners, directors, or their administrators, nor do I stand as surety for its subsidiaries or its associates at any point or moment in time. So that's an heir speaking up.
Okay. Where would you file that?
You got that right. The nature of that statement, and it can be expanded, is structured within all of your claims to your right of estate. And it's called, that would be called in the law of operative estates, what is called an adverse claim. An adverse claim not ongoing, is considered abandoned. No matter what is done.
But are you filing that?
No, you give them notice.
Who's them?
County. Mainly county record.
Got it. County record.
Mainly, yeah. But you would not necessarily ask them for permission.
No.
You notice that.
I know that. Yeah.
You notice that because anything that is what you call permissive or
they can say no to.
That you have to apply for is an admission to a false platform of jurisdiction. Because what they're doing, they made a colorable claim on your estate in the first place, but you make a reversionary adverse claim on it. Go ahead, good brother.
Yes, just point of clarification, I think you mentioned 18, it was 12. Just for the people who are listening. And then also, Question about the letter to the Pope. Could you summarize why he felt the need, or why there was a need?
It's not that he felt the need, they're under pressure. So you gotta remember, this is what's happening. And we're gonna close out because I know I'm keeping it rolling. This is what's happening, and people need to understand, is that there's a civil war going on at North America that's been pretty much kept out of the public because the mainstream news are controlled by the Kabbalists. And therefore, you're not exposed to everything. The techniques that they have been using to disappear people are being turned on them. Their control has been predicated on befriend, embrace, devour, meaning that they have no friends. The strength of continuance has been artful promotion of blind faith. That means when you begin to discover their fraud, they'll set up a program, a process by which you're supposed to have access to the estate trust that they're controlling in the transmitting utility that they have represented on your behalf on the stock market. They buy time, they get much information they can from you, then they send out black boxes to knock you off. Name, let's look at this. Name, now over the years, I've talked to many Europeans, and some Europeans that came to my class. One prominent European wealthy woman, you all know what she writes for Higher Truth magazine. I won't say her name because whatever, but. And then there's a couple other Europeans that were holding classes for years with sovereignty, what they call sovereignty classes. And it was averaging like to come to a class like this, you come through the door with 1,500. You don't get through the door. That was then, if you understand. Now, deal is they've never honored anything. You're intelligent and you've done research. I mean, they don't have opportunity to necessarily do it, but I know this. I've done radio stations around this country, from the West Coast to the East Coast. Yeah. I've talked to many people in between. Celebrities, radio people, producers, Hollywood. A lot of people that you consider celebrities, that in private, we have private conversations, but they can't come public because these people, Negroites, will not buy their stuff, not see their movies and stuff like that. Even this room back that belongs to an actress, that diamond, that was just a gift. Right? If I told you who she was, you'd be surprised. But let me say this to you. When you think that people don't know this, you're sorely wrong. And I say this. Now, Dr. Nailah, just as an interim. Now, I'm a house doctor.
You are.
Right? And I just have a crew and all that stuff. But anything that has to do with house, doesn't matter what it is, I understand it, I can do it. Now,
I can attest to that.
If you ask me to fix that door, and we're into next week and next month, and I'm talking about keep hope alive, and you making me peanut butter sandwiches every day and coffee because you got a lot of tea. That sister got some tea, boy. She got tea that tea don't have tea. The tea company ain't got tea that she got. Anyway, and then we're next year, and I'm talking about keep hope alive. After a while, how many donkeys we got in the house, if you get the whole point? Meaning that you either is or you ain't. You either do something or you don't. Now let's be honest, and this is truth. I've dealt with Europeans and Asiatics around this country in many venues, and I have to be honest with you. One thing I always look at, and this is principle, anything that's legitimate and true is never complex. That's number one. And number two, anything that's legitimate and true for you, if we take just this row right here, and you go through the process, if one fails, it's only because of some little glitch, but all of you should run through. Tell the truth. How many people do you know through your years of study that did HMOs that you can count on one hand that was successful all the way through? How many people through all your travels that you can count on one hand that did financial statements that got a hold of that global estate trust under the Jesuits and discharged everything at all times? Name one person that did a financial statement and satisfied all their debts. Name one person that did the birth certificate and got control of that global estate trust and got their hands on that bottomless pit of finances. Name a handful of them, but I can name, not directly, not because we haven't, necessarily talked with everyone personally, but indirectly with others who've operated that deal with this stuff. That tells you failure. That tells you bullshit. That tells you being played. It tells you they're buying time. For all the millions of people that have done all these different processes, and a lot of people have been selling packages for thousands of notes, getting people's energy. Ask them to show you the checks that they just discharged, and they'll tell you all of these processes, etc. And I could give you some numbers, even with the IRS criminals, where you complete the UCC, then they say, oh, but you forgot to get this one, except I think that's Form 81, whatever. It's 4 numbers. And after they run through all these years, they say, you didn't add this one, then you do that when they play you again. Now, I bought cars, off lots and didn't pay taxes. And I, help some people, relieve the city tax where they try to pull the crap on them. And they'll let you through here and there. But it's only to keep faith with the other blinders. Mm-hmm. Or they think you're going to go after their bonds, so they let you slide and they try to put stuff off the record. But let me tell you this. Name 5 people. Name 2. But you can name hundreds that got these packages to sell, these processes to sell, etc. Now let's be real. Can I sit that back for me? Move that back on here. Trick or treat and stuff. Now, if I got my hand in this trick or treat bag, I don't need your candy, right?
That's right.
And I got the factory type thing.
Right.
So how come people that's always promoting these processes need a couple hundred from you?
Right. True. They should be millionaires.
That's like the bread factory talking about come on to the bread show but bring sandwich with you. I don't want to see no bread. That's like somebody got the ocean beach, I got the condo down at the beach and everything, and says, sis, come on down, I'll see you talking in your house, getting stuff.
Bring your sand.
Come on, swimming, bring a bucket of water with you. No, I don't want to see no water. Do you understand what I'm saying? We should use intelligence. And understand this whole promise is bull. It's buying them time. Choke Rome. Choke the beast. Choke the transmitting utility. Don't claim it. They offer you beautiful apples. Don't bite it. But it doesn't mean don't study and don't see what they're doing. Understand what they're doing. But intelligence tells you, if you can't name 5 people that completed this cycle and you know millions are doing it and transmit, running all over the damn place. Going filing here. Going to the transportation department. Going over here, Commerce Department. Going down to the IRS, getting a 9-digit number. Getting authenticating birth certificate. Stop. House of Reawakening Minds. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Travel safely.
If I can have everybody's attention just for a moment. Nobody here knows me, but I've traveled up here from Maryland. I
came specifically to send under his teachings, because I've seen many of it on YouTube. And in addition to that, I wanted to claim my nationality. I brought my papers with me, so I was hoping I can get signatures.
Sounds good. Let me see what we.
Good night, Facebookers. You're welcome, everybody.
What?